With the Indians trailing the Braves 2-0, the World Series returned to Cleveland last night for the first time in 41 years. And the friendly surroundings of Jacobs Field rekindled the confidence of the American League champions. Lightning rod Kenny Lofton was in full gear again, igniting the Indians with his base running. And in the field, sparking other great plays that stymied Atlanta rallies throughout the night. After blowing a 3-run lead, Sandy Alomar delivered a game-tying double in the 8th, and Game 3 went to extra innings. Jose Mesa held the Braves off through the 9th, 10th, and 11th innings. Then Carlos Baerga led off the bottom of the 11th with a double. And Eddie Murray delivered the game-winning blow for the comeback Kings off Alejandro Pena to score pinch runner Alvaro Espinoza and launch a post-midnight celebration. Can the Indians even the series tonight, or will the Braves move to within one win of the title? Up next, Game 4. Welcome to Jacobs Field in Cleveland. It was an overcast morning, a sparkling, clear, sunny afternoon. Temperature in the low 50s. It's delightful. Much warmer and less windy than last night. A capacity crowd looking on. A ballpark that opened in 1994 and in its second year hosting the World Series. The first time the World Series has been played in Northern Ohio in 41 years. Game 4 tonight between the Atlanta Braves and the Cleveland Indians. Welcome to Jacobs Field. I'm Al Michaels, soon to be joined by Jim Palmer and Tim McCarver. It's been a great World Series so far. Games 1 and 2, one-run games won by the Braves in Atlanta. Another one-run game last night, won by the Indians. So each game decided by a single run. Each has been won by the home team. In a way, the Indians are getting a break tonight because Bobby Cox, the Braves manager, could have opted to start Greg Maddux, which would have meant he could also have started Maddux in a 7th game if necessary. But instead tonight he chooses the left-hander Steve Avery to go up against Ken Hill. Maddux pitches tomorrow, which means if we go to a 6th game, it's Glavine in Atlanta, and it would be John Smoltz pitching in a 7th game. The Indians were on the verge of elimination last night if they would have gone down 3-0. Almost an insurmountable lead, of course, because in the history of the World Series, no team has ever come back from 0-3. But 1-2 is a whole lot different, and two guys who got it done early this morning in Cleveland, earlier visited with Leslie Visser.
Thanks, Al. I'm with two of the men who made magic here last night, Carlos Baerga and Jose Mesa. Carlos, first to you. You'd been in a terrible slump until last night, but 3 hits, 3 RBIs. What were you trying to do differently?
I just tried to get some hits. You know, if I put pressure on myself, I'm not going to do anything. And I tried to help this team. The first 2 games, you know, I made the 2 last hours of the game, and I say, you know, I have to do something to help this team. And I just said, thanks God I got 3 hits.
Well, you certainly came through. Also in the field, where actually you have an air cast on your left ankle, and your right ankle you heard either hurt last year or earlier in the year. How has this affected you?
Well, it's bothered me a little bit. You know, it's hard for me to hit in the left side, but I can keep playing. You know, I know the trainers, they've been doing what they can do, you know, to get me going, and thanks God that I'm been trying to do everything I can in there.
So far, so good. Jose, you're mostly a 1-inning guy. Last night, 3 tough innings. How are you today, and could you pitch tonight?
Well, yeah, I'm ready to go today if they need me because, you know, they usually, use me for 1 inning. And last night they got me working a little extra, a little harder because I got to throw 3 tough innings against, a tough opponent who was Mark Waller. But, I should just say thank God, that we win the ball game, and I'm ready today if they need me.
Well, you're known as one of the strongest, hardest workers on the team. Congratulations to you both. Back to you, Al.
One of the emerging stars, Leslie, in this series has been a 23-year-old who had a can't-miss tag. He was the #1 man chosen in the draft in 1990. Larry Chipper Jones, now at the age of 23, not only an everyday starter at third base for the Atlanta Braves, but hitting .386 in postseason play. And earlier, he summed up the mood of the Braves after last night's game.
One of the luxuries that we've had all year is the fact that on any given day, whoever we send out on the mound, we know we got a great shot of winning. Very hot pitcher going for us tonight, and Steve Avery. Hopefully he can get us up 3-1 and I'll be as dominating as he has the last month. And then with Greg Maddux on the mound tomorrow, you know, hopefully we can clinch this thing out. It was a very frustrating loss last night, but that was yesterday. And this is a new day, and we're still up 2-1. We still got the upper hand. They have to hold serve at home, and we're going to try like heck to break serve.
Should be a great one tonight. Game 4 of the 1995 World Series, and we'll return after this from our ABC stations. Here's the PA announcer at Jacobs Field, Mark Trumba.
And now, to honor America, please welcome Grammy Award-winning EMI recording artist John Cicada for the singing of tonight's national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, all the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
And we're back with the start of the fourth game of the 1995 World Series after this. One-run game in this World Series, each won by the home team. The game was the third longest in terms of time in the history of the World Series, 4 hours, 9 minutes, ending at 12:42 a.m. and well worth it for the Cleveland Indians. They get back into the swing of things, winning at 7-6 in 11 innings. And Tim McCarver, every World Series has its ebb and its flow. Where's this baby flowing right now?
Well, Bobby Cox telling us before the game that regardless of whether the Atlanta Braves win the World Series or not, last night's game will be very, very difficult to forget. So I think the Cleveland Indians have a little momentum going into tonight's game, even though they trail in the series 2-1. And speaking of momentum, that's exactly what the Atlanta Braves want on the road in the World Series. They lost 4 in a row in Minnesota at the Metrodome in 1991, 2 of 3 in the World Series in '92 at Sky Dome, and they lost last night. 6 of those 7 losses on the road, by the way, one-run games, and I think realistically what Atlanta would like to do is win at least one game here in the next 2 meetings and take a cushion back to Atlanta.
And they can't blame jet lag. Almost all of those games have been played in the Eastern time zone. Of course. Jim Palmer, let's talk about the pitchers here. Pitchers love to work on 4 days rest, but 2 guys tonight in a vital game working in a week and a half, they haven't seen any action.
10 days between stars. I can't think of a worse scenario than to do it here at Jacobs Field. Steve Avery of the Braves and Kenny Hill of the Indians, what have they been doing over the last 10 days? They've been in the bullpen. They've been throwing as much as they can. They've been trying to do a simulated game, having a hitter stand up there, no umpire, and none of their mistakes have been getting hit. How will it affect them? Well, I'll tell you, location. And in this ballpark, you can get killed. The pitches that are supposed to be down in the strike zone, they may be up in the strike zone. And most of all, you have a tendency when you struggle with your control to stop throwing strikes. If they go 2-0 and 3-1 tonight, Al, we will see in this ballpark, again, a hitter-friendly ballpark, a lot of runs.
Right now, let's get a word from Leslie Visser. Leslie?
Al, Mark Lemke echoed Bobby Cox. He said the mood in the Braves clubhouse was one of frustration. They thought they should have won last night, be up 3-0 and finish it here in Cleveland. He said, look for Dave Justice to break out of his slump. Justice has no extra base hits in the postseason. Well, as for the Indians, Eddie Murray celebrated his game-winning hit by going out last night and having a late-night, early morning breakfast with some good friends. He told me about an hour ago that that win does not necessarily change the momentum in this series, but it does put the Indians, as he said, one game closer to 4. Al?
Okay, Leslie, 3 very exciting games in the World Series thus far. Will there be a 4th? We'll be back with the 4th game of the 1995 World Series after this ABC News Brief and a word from our ABC stations. No more popular Indian in the history of this franchise, and they've been around since just about the turn of the century, than Bullet Bob. Bob Feller. Feller's all-time records include most wins by any Indian, and there he was just moments ago, prior to throwing out the ceremonial first pitch. Bullet Bob, immortalized up on the wall here, your section 304. Number 19, pitched in the 1948 World Series, but not in the 1954 World Series. The Indians last won the World Championship in 48, and then in 54 swept by the Giants after winning 111 games during the regular season. Ken Hill coming in along with pitching coach Mark Wiley. Ken Hill started the season on the Montreal roster. In fact, last year he finished second to Greg Maddux of the Braves in the Cy Young balloting, won 16 games in the truncated year, then was traded to the St. Louis Cardinals. He had been with the Cardinals earlier in his career. And then in late July, when all of the contending clubs were looking for late season help, and people like David Cone were available and some others, the Indians opted for Ken Hill. And Steve Avery, in terms of experience, he has plenty in World Series play. This is his 5th World Series start. He started 2 games in 91, 2 more in 92, but here he is, still young, even though he's been playing professional ball since 1988. But he is the number 4 starter on this staff, and he's the kind of pitcher with his stuff who'd be number 1 on a few staffs. Bobby Cox, as we mentioned at the very top, had a choice. And remember, he did pitch Greg Maddux on 3 days rest in the divisional series against the Colorado Rockies, which surprised a lot of people when the Braves led 2-1. But here he opted, after the victory in Game 1, to give Maddux his normal 4 days rest to work tomorrow.
It's interesting to note that about 10 years ago, almost every manager would have chosen Greg Maddux, but because of the contemporary mode, most pitchers looking for 4 days rest. That's why Maddux is pitching tomorrow night and not tonight.
Yeah, his pitch count not very high in Game 1, only 93, so he could have pitched tonight. But really, if you look at this matchup, Mike Hargrove believes in Kenny Hill. He pitched very well down the stretch, and the same thing with Bobby Cox and Steve Avery.
Ken Hill, the number 4 starter. As we take a look now at tonight's Budweiser Atlanta Braves lineup, Marquise Grissom leading off, Luis Polonia in left field, Chipper Jones, the rookie, at third, Fred McGriff having a great postseason at first base, David Justice struggling in postseason in right field, Ryan Klesko is the designated hitter, the DH used in the World Series in the American League parks. Javi Lopez does the catching, Mark Lemke at second base, and Rafael Billiard is the shortstop, batting ninth. Now the outfield for Cleveland, Bell, Lofton, and Ramirez. The infield, Espinoza gets the start at third. He platoons with Thome. Vizquel at shortstop, errorless in postseason. Baerga made a couple of great plays last night, and so did Perry at first base, really the unsung hero. Alomar back of the plate, Hill on the mound.
29-year-old Kenny Hill, as Al told you, St. Louis at the beginning of the year, traded to Cleveland, went 4-1. There's the fastball. That's the four-seamer. Holding it across the seams and hoping that that ball is going to rise. There we go. The slider. That is his breaking ball, and the pitch he'll use for his off-speed pitch will be the splitter. And this is a pitch, I tell you what, he is very adept at getting double plays when he gets ahead in the count. If you're Atlanta, you can look for that pitch.
The umpires tonight. An American League umpire is back of the plate. John Hirschbeck, Frank Pulley at first, Joe Brinkman at second, Harry Wendelstedt at third, Jim McKean down the line in left, Bruce Fremming, who to me was the bravest man in Cleveland last night, down the line in right. Bruce worked the plate last night and worked them in shirt sleeves. The crowd looked like they were at a Browns game in December, and Bruce in shirt sleeves at 12:42 this morning. Good for him. Mike Hargrove. He said, I spent all day getting the thorns out of my hide. Everybody questioning a lot of his decisions, but they would have been a lot tougher had the Indians been down 0-3 instead of 1-2. Here we go with Grissom to lead off, and it's hit right back through the middle for a base hit. With about 20,000 flash bulbs popping on the first pitch, Grissom with a single to center to start things. Marquise with good speed at first, nobody out, Polonia coming up.
Marquise Grissom and Ken Hill were teammates last year with the Montreal Expos, and then in that fire sale, Larry Walker going as a free agent to the Colorado Rockies, John Wetland traded to the New York Yankees, and the history on Hill, and Marquise Grissom traded to the Atlanta Braves. But this is very important. The setup men for the Atlanta Braves, they have not been on that often. They haven't really been running that much during the series.
And there goes Grissom, and the first pitch is a strike, and the throw is a one-hopper that is not in time.
You know, we've talked so much and you've seen so much about Kenny Lofton of the Indians, but Grissom now in 12 straight games, and he is the only guy that really runs on this ball club. 29 steals during the regular season. You can see the jump. Alomar with a throw from one knee, no possible chance as a throw a little bit to the short side, stop side. You can see on one knee, he knows he has to hurry. And if you're Kenny Hill, you let Grissom get that kind of jump, he'll take third.
Well, he tried to take third at one point last night, but not at a very opportune time.
Well, do you bunt here with Polonia early in the ball game?
I think I do. And they throw in and almost get him. So Grissom, who was in effect picked off last night, though the out was recorded at third, almost gets picked off tonight.
You know, that brings up a very intriguing point. We are playing in the American League. We'll take another look at this pickoff, and it is very close. But you're playing in the American League with the DH in a small ballpark. I don't know if you want to give up an out in the first inning, even though Polonia is not a very good pull hitter.
Well, that's obviously Bobby Cox agrees with you. Now it's 0-2, so that negates the bunt.
Chipper Jones is waiting on deck. And it's a half swing. No, says the third base umpire Harry Wendelstedt, ball one.
Well, there's that fork ball. And I said that they will look for it with two strikes. Looking for it and hitting it, two different things. It appears to be a fastball. Hill throws 93, 95 miles per hour, and that ball dives. Polonia looked like he stayed back.
And that's popped up. Vizquel calls for it on the skin part. One down. First inning, Grissom at second base with one away, and Chipper Jones coming up. Jones still sporting that cut on his upper lip. Friday, before the first game of the World Series, the night before in Atlanta, fielding a ball off the wall in the outfield. It caromed off his lip. There was a lot of blood, but he's fine. And again, a bluff back to second base. One reason Jones was fielding balls in the outfield is he is a great outfielder. He may be the third baseman in Atlanta for a long time, but a lot of people think his best position and his eventual position is center field. To the switch hitter.
That was a non-productive out by Luis Polonia. I'll tell you, you win a lot of ball games by making productive outs and moving runners along, particularly in this situation, because now it's going to be tougher for Grissom to steal third with the left-handers coming up, Jones, McGriff, and Justice.
To Jones, 1-1.
Yeah, Kenny Hill will be very aware, as you talked about it, and you know, Kenny Hill telling us before game one he thought Marquis Grissom may be the best center fielder in the game. He saw him steal 76, 78 bases up at Montreal, so he's going to keep an eye.
Jones hits it to center field. Lofton started in, but has plenty of time to get back, and Grissom tags, and the throw is offline. So Marquis goes to third with 2 down.
Well, that's heads-up base running, and the reason, of course, if you're Grissom, you know Lofton's going to catch the ball. If he tags up, you're not going to take the splitter away from Hill, but I'll tell you what, if you're Kenny Hill, you're going to think, if you get ahead in the count, that maybe I have to get that splitter up a little bit, because if you bounce the slider or the splitter, Atlanta may be on the board.
And Fred McGriff would love for him to get that splitter up.
McGriff having a terrific postseason. On the right, 370 is overall average. Smoked one into the seats last night. That was real good base running, the more you think about it, by Grissom, because if Lofton had read it right and been able to come in and make the catch and get some momentum behind a throw, that was one thing. But Kenny had started in, and Grissom saw him going back to make the catch, and he really couldn't get that much on the throw. 2-0.
I know it's the first inning as we take a look at Bobby Cox, and you know, McGriff hits and has hit Hill pretty well, but the guy on deck, David Justice, 1 for 25. I know you haven't been out there in 11 days, but he may be thinking about that.
Strike, 2-1.
There's the 2-0 split-fingered fastball. A little bit of respect for Freddie McGriff.
Away for ball 3. No score, top of the first inning in game 4. Grissom led off with a single, stole second to third on a fly ball. 2 out.
Splitter grip right there.
And the pitch is low. He threw the splitter for ball 4. So pitching around a hot hitter here in the first inning to get to a guy that Hill has handled before in Justice.
Yeah, it doesn't always work out, Al. I can testify to that. I mean, I hated to give up big innings early in a ball game, but again, when you have a guy like McGriff, and if you're Kenny Hill, you've pitched against him, you know what he can do. It's kind of a crapshoot. You'll take your better chance, and you can see the numbers right there. 1 for 25.
A little dangerous for Ken Hill to go into that splitter grip before he goes into the glove. Of course, he can change it.
I'm wondering, maybe he does that on every pitch, Tim.
0-1. Did you notice that Justice's only lifetime hit off Hill was a home run?
That was back in 1990, and here's the splitter down and away to David. good time to send McGriff at first base. I don't think Alomar will throw through with Grissom on at third, and if he does, then you've got Perry playing behind McGriff. We'll see if Bobby Cox lets him go. If he gets thrown out, well, then you've got Justice leading off. The big thing is Grissom comes home if he throws through.
He stays, and the pitch is outside. He laid off. 1-2.
Well, that's what David Justice talked about in the workout before Game 1. Hurt his shoulder in May. He said, I'm just going to cut down on my swing. And that's what he's trying to do with 2 strikes. He's got to protect all 17 inches of that plate, up and down, in and out.
Crowd exhorting / imploring Hill to get the strikeout here. First and third, 2 out. And that's grounded to Vizquel softly to Baerga for the force. And Atlanta squanders a threat in the first, leaving a pair. Braves nothing, Indians coming up. Modern day Paul Winchell, Jerry Mahoniak right here, huh?
Sherry Lewis.
Lamb chop.
Right.
Steve Avery on the mound. Postseason this year, 1-0. Again, it's his 5th World Series start. 3rd man picked overall in the draft in 1988. Tonight's Budweiser Cleveland Indian lineup. Kenny Lofton in center. Omar Vizquel at short. Carlos Baerga, one of last night's heroes, at second. Albert Bell in left. Eddie Murray with a game-winning hit in the 11th. Manny Ramirez in right. Perry at first base. Espinoza gets the start at third. And Sandy Alomar back of the plate. Atlanta defensively. Polonia, Grissom, and Justice in the outfield. Jones, Belliard, Lemke. 74 errorless chances in postseason play this year at second. And McGriff at first. Lopez back of the plate. Steve Avery on the mound.
Now you go back to the first postseason that Avery pitched, which was 1991. He will pitch 16 2/3 innings. And Van Slyke called him Poison Avery because he got left-handers out so well. And this year, 198. So you think it's got to be a good matchup.
Kenny Lofton got aboard 6 times last night. 3 hits, 3 walks. Ball 1, 1-0. A one-man gang, and rips this one to right field, but right at Justice. Good wood, but only allowed out. Game 4 of the World Series is being brought to you by Lexus Luxury Automobiles, the result of a relentless pursuit of perfection. Canon, so advanced it's simple, and Budweiser, official sponsor of the 1996 U.S. Olympic team. This Bud's for you. What a sight. Jacobs Field in Cleveland. Right downtown. It has revitalized the area. Omar Vizquel at the plate. Ball 1, 1-0. Downtown parks are so great. Look what it's done for Baltimore. Coors Field in Denver. 2-0.
Of course, 30 years ago, a downtown park was built in St. Louis, and today we understand that Anheuser-Busch has put the St. Louis Cardinals up for sale.
Never thought I'd live long enough to see that day. That's a strike, and the count 2-1. Omar, 143 overall in postseason play. And he lines that one, and it's caught by Lemke. So the Indians have started by hitting 2 balls right on the button, but for naught. 2 up, 2 down.
Yeah, that's what we talked about. When you don't pitch in 10 days, what's it going to do? Well, another belt-high pitch. Vizquel hits it right on the nose, and the diminutive Mark Lemke up with a grab. So two pitches, 2 line drives, 2 outs. Nice going.
Now Baerga. Switch hitter. Had the double last night. And Espinoza went into pinch run and scored the winning run. Outside, ball 1. Carlos in the World Series, 3 for 14. And that's lined, and it's a base hit. So another ball hit squarely by the Indians, and this one a single with 2 out. Avery's not tricking anybody yet.
Yeah, I think the most appropriate thing in this inning are cannon billboards, because there have been some low rocket shots hit by Lofton and then Vizquel, and this one finds a hole in the gap in right center.
Remember, I talked about in the open, Timmy, you try those pitches when you don't pitch in 10 days, you're trying to throw down in the strike zone. They end up belt high. Not a good idea against this team in this ballpark.
See, the Indians are a very difficult team to pitch against for a guy like Avery. Most of the Indian hitters stand on top of the plate, and Avery, to be effective, has to be low and away with both his fastball and his changeup. Little margin for error against these guys.
Now Albert Bell. Off speed, 1-0.
And you talk about standing close to the plate. The one thing you have to do in a short series is make adjustments. Albert Bell was probably about 6 to 10 inches farther off the plate in game 1 against Maddox.
So was Manny Ramirez.
So Charlie Manuel, hitting instructor, said, let's get up on the plate, and he's done that.
2-0.
Albert Bell, if that box is drawn correctly, he's out of the batter's box. Of course, he's not hitting that well. You don't want to bring it up to him. But catchers don't mind that if nobody's on base. But if somebody's on first, then that pushes a catcher even farther back from second.
Ball 3, all off speed. 3-0.
You can bet he has the green light right here.
I'll tell you, I have never seen hitters, both American and National League, hit 3-0 more than I have in 1995. Much more aggressive. And why not?
That's a strike. Albert thought it was ball 4.
He was hitting there. That pitch just happened to catch the corner.
Well, that's what you mentioned earlier. This is where he wants to be. Outer extremes of the plate. In fact, a couple of inches off the plate, which is probably why he wanted to go down to first.
That's a big corner right there. That was Times Square.
That corner was in Pepper Pike. That's a strike. Off speed again. 3-2. So full count, 2 out. Baerga will be off and running with a pitch.
Just low and away. And that's the book on Albert. High and tight, low and away, change speeds.
That's a book on anybody.
Exactly. Especially on this guy.
Baerga goes. 3-2 is inside. Ball 4. Just inside. So Avery all soft stuff. And then Cox wants an appeal at first base, and they finally get one, and Frank Pulley said no swing. And then Bobby wants to know why it wasn't a called strike to begin with.
But Bobby's saying we'll take either way.
Yeah.
Did he go around? Oh, that was close.
Yes.
That was close.
Yeah. Albert should be getting his glove and trotting to left.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he went around there.
Yeah, that was certainly closer to being a strike than strike 1 was. Here's Murray now. Switch hitter, batting right-handed, half-swing strike on 1. Eddie first came up with the Orioles in '77, so this is the end of his 19th season. Played in the World Series in '79 and '83. Baerga at second. Bell off to his lead at first. 1-1.
You mentioned that career 19 years, and in all 19 years has driven in over 75 runs, which ties Hank Aaron. But that run he drove in the 12th inning last night. Any bigger?
No.
Only 2 hits in the World Series, a 2-run homer against Glavine, and the game winner last night.
Murray, during the regular season, a much better hitter from the other side. He hit .340 left-handed and only .269 this way.
You know, I saw Eddie when he came up with the Orioles, a natural right-handed hitter, and I thought he'd struggle left-handed. But it's really at the end of his career, he is struggling more from this side.
2-2.
He's very frustrated. He looked up and away. I mean, this is a home run swing. Pulls off it just enough to move the head, and the result is a swing and a miss.
That's similar to the two-run homer he hit off Tommy Glavine in Game 2.
2-2 with 2 out, 2 on, no score in the first inning, and that's grounded down to third, and Jones goes to Lemke. So each team threatens but doesn't score, and at the end of 1, no score. What a night in Cleveland. Beautiful night in northern Ohio. Temperature in the low 50s and very little wind, so quite comfortable. Spectacular shot of downtown Cleveland. Tonight's Diamond Dust quiz brought to you by Lexus. Bob Gibson struck out a record 17 batters in Game 1 of the '68 World Series, mainly due to Tim McCarver's pitch selection. The question is, who holds the record for most strikeouts by a relief pitcher in a World Series game? And we'll have the answer for you shortly.
I think I know that answer.
All right. You want to venture a guess?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he helped me get my first World Series win.
1966.
Yep. So we'll give you a couple of hints. I assume that's, but you never know with Steve Hurt. Been known to trick you up here.
Ryan Klesko leads off in the second inning. 2-0 the count.
If it is Mo Grabowski back in 1966, he did it 5 years before Ryan Klesko was born. Klesko only 24 years old. But really has an idea about the strike zone and about what he's trying to do at the plate. The more and more you talk to this young man, the more you realize that he's not just up there hacking. He knows what he's doing.
Hit .310 with 23 homers during the regular season. Homered last night to center field. 3-1.
Yeah, I saw that early in the division series. Struck him out on a pitch away. The next time he went out there, got a hit to left field, drove a double to left field, and another base hit up the middle.
And he walks here. So Klesko starts things with a walk in the second inning. The Braves again get the leadoff man on. And Javi Lopez comes up. Lopez, some very big hits in postseason play. I think the biggest might have been in Cincinnati in Game 2 of the League Championship Series, helping the Braves win 2 on the road and leading to a sweep. Hit a home run, a 3-run homer in extra innings.
Pretty big hit in the World Series, too. A 2-run shot against Dennis Martinez for his only hit. Braves get a lot of long ball production out of their catchers. 23 home runs during the regular season out of Charlie O'Brien and Javier Lopez.
That's grounded down to third. Espinosa goes to Baerga, one back to first. Not in time there. Lopez legs it out. Klesko gone on a force. 5-4, 1 down, and it will bring up Lemke.
Now, a slide like Klesko's is really bad on the ankles. Leslie Visser talking about Baerga and the sprained ankles, wearing protection on both. And watch how hard Klesko comes in to Baerga just to make sure with that right arm. Perfectly clean, hard slide, and that prevents a double play.
Now Lemke with 1 out and 1 on, and you saw Baerga flexing. Fastball up high, ball 1. Lemke is a switch hitter. He's better the other way. He hit .290 as a right-handed batter and then .240 as a left-handed batter this season.
Yeah, showed us a little bit of muscle last night. The wind blowing as it is tonight, but much stronger from left to right. Almost hit a home run. Long single off the right field wall.
Hit down the line in left field and back in the seats. 1-1. Talking about Ken Hill and the fact he was moved during the season, and there were some of the guys who were picked up by contenders. David Wells went from Detroit to Cincinnati. He was 6-5. David Cohn went to the Yankees and did very well down the stretch. Portugal from the Giants to the Reds, 6-5. And Ken Hill picked up by Cleveland, 4-1 with a 3.90 ERA.
By the way, 7 of those 8 pitchers reached postseason play.
One of the reasons, of course, is that the teams that procured them all were in the race, or as was the case with Cleveland, had big leads. In fact, Cleveland had such a big lead that John Hart was looking for a guy to get them through postseason as opposed to postseason. A lot of the other pitchers were picked up to get a team into postseason play. But the Indians had such a gigantic lead in the Central Division, and with a wild card looming at the end of July, they couldn't say it publicly, but they knew they were going to postseason play, and John Hart had to think about, who do we face in the playoffs?
And what pitchers are available. And Ken Hill was the best of the lot.
Yep. That's lifted to left field. And Bell there for the easy second out. 2 down, it will bring up Belliard. You know, when you think about one of the things John Hart did, at one point in August, it appeared as if the Indians were definitely going to meet the Angels in the division series, because that's the way the matchup was going to go. There was a point when it almost looked as if it was a lock, and John had to start thinking about how to get through the Angels first. It didn't turn out that way. Didn't have to. They wound up meeting the Red Sox and then Seattle. Comebacker. Easy play for Hill. That's down in the top of the second. And the 1.5 at Jacobs Field. Game 4 of the World Series. No score. In conjunction with the Diamond Dust Quiz, go back to the World Series 68. Bob Gibson fans 17, including Al Kaline and Norm Cash and Willie Horton. A World Series record at the end of the game. There's T-Mac, Tim McCarver, coming out to say, great job. Gibson saying, your name again? Who holds the record for most strikeouts by a relief pitcher in a World Series game? Mo Grabowski. You got it, James.
Yep, 11 punch-outs in 5 2/3 innings against the Dodgers. I was pitching the next day, sitting on the bench, and he made me understand that the Dodgers had trouble with high fastballs. Next day I went out there, that's what I threw. And then 3 shutouts later, we were world champs. Mo made it easy.
Now Manny Ramirez, who has been striking out his share of the time in postseason, 0-1.
You may have noticed on that clip the reaction of Willie Horton on that slider from Gibson. Willie, to this day, still thinks that ball hit him. That's how much that ball broke. It was headed right for him. Ball must have broken 1.5 feet. I've told anybody that if you had 3 fingers, you could have caught Gibson that day. He was awesome.
Best performance you've ever seen?
Yes. Best single performance that I've ever seen, yes.
Manny Ramirez 4 for 4 in game 2 against Seattle in the American League Championship Series with 2 home runs, but that's been it. The rest of postseason has been a washout for him. And then insult to injury, in effect, the other night, picked off at first base, key play in game 2 by Javi Lopez.
Well, he's 23, and, you know, Mike Hargroves talked about it. Charlie Manuel, the hitting instructor, he says this guy's got a lot of talent, but he is still learning how to play the game, and a much better offensive player at this point in his career than with the glove or on the bases. I mean, this is a kid that really, I mean, you gotta like his work ethics. He didn't play that much in the outfield, went back to the Dominican to learn so he could play somewhat in right field, and still trying to master that position.
1-2.
You say back to the Dominican, as you see Herbert Perry on deck. Actually, Ramirez is from the Bronx, but of course has family in the Dominican Republic.
Hit down to short, scooped up by Belliard. 1 down, and that will bring up Perry.
That's what Avery wants all the right-handed hitters to do tonight, is to try to pull the changeup on the outside, play pepper with the shortstop all night long.
Well, in the annals fundamentals of last night's game, when you look at the box score down the line through the years, it'll be Eddie Murray and Carlos Baerga and Jose Mesa with the performances. But this guy, as much as any, is responsible for this series being 2-1 right now. Tremendous play at first base in the 9th inning on the ball hit by Chipper Jones. Otherwise, Atlanta probably wins the game.
2 outs, 2 on. Certainly 1 run scores, maybe 2.
And then he was able to dig out a throw at first base as well in the 10th. 1-1. Take a look at the play again from last night. Sure base hit down the line. No. Using that glove like a highlight cesta. And that's line to left field, but Polonia is there and makes it look relatively easy. 2 down.
You know, you bring up a great point about using the changeup to get the ground balls and keeping hitters off balance. But if we go back and look, and now what, 7 hitters, every time Avery's thrown a fastball, he's been giving up a line drive. So that, we call that, it's kind of like a circle change, almost, maybe not really with the index finger and the thumb together, but kind of like a palm ball, which he just kind of pulls down like a window shade.
They ought to change the name of that to the tentacle change.
Yep.
It's like an octopus.
But his fastball is not doing a lot tonight yet.
Alvaro Espinoza takes a strike. Espinoza from Venezuela, 33 years old. He was first signed by the Astros in '79. Strike 0-2. And Alvaro has bounced around Minnesota, the Yankees, and then came here in 1993.
Yeah, Alvaro was the regular shortstop for the New York Yankees from '89 to '91.
That's looped into right field for a base hit. So a 2-out single by Espinoza, and it will bring up Alomar.
And Timmy, he could do that with the best of them when he was playing shortstop for the Yankees. Got up about 500 times, did not hit a home run, drove in 41 runs, hit around 280. I mean, if you don't hit a lot of home runs, just become a contact hitter. You put the ball in play, sometimes you get lucky.
Rafael Belliard the same way for the Braves.
Alomar hitting in the number 9 spot tonight. 0-1. Well, Espinoza, a one-time starter in the infield with the Yankees. What about Bobby Cox? I think some people wonder about Bobby's playing career. It was brief in the majors, but he did spend 1 season, 1968, as the Yankees' regular third baseman. He spent 2 years overall in the big leagues. In fact, when you look at his record played out in the baseball register, it looks very similar to Sparky Anderson's record. A brief stint as a starter in the big league. Sparky spent 1 season with Philadelphia and then a whole lot of minor league action. 1-2.
And were it not for the bad knees of Bobby Cox, certainly he would have extended his major league career. He's had both knees replaced. Think about the heir apparent to that third base job, held down by Cletus Boyer for 9 years.
1-2 to Alomar, just inside. 2-2. Bobby Cox spent a lot of time managing postseason games. Toronto manager in '85 against Kansas City, and now 4 times in the last 5 seasons with the Braves.
Hey, class guy. You know, every day when we talk to him, he's been an outstanding manager. I mean, he's an honest guy, and you know, he says he doesn't. It really doesn't matter whether they win the World Series. Come on, I mean, you see him agonize every night.
Off speed, grounded to short. There's the force. Belliard to Lemke, and we go to the 3rd at Jacobs Field. Atlanta nothing, Cleveland nothing. Beautiful shot from the Goodyear Blimp Spirit of Akron, based not far from here. Akron right down the interstate on the way to Canton, the site of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and the Goodyear Blimp hovering above Jacobs Field on this gorgeous late October night. The Atlanta Braves up 2-1 tomorrow. They send Greg Maddux to the mound. It's a rematch of Game 1, and Oral Hershiser works for Cleveland. Let me just take a look here for a second. Yes, it's our game tomorrow night on ABC. Right here, folks. Don't touch that dial.
Yeah, you would think that it's a must-win for the Indians tonight because Maddux, 2-hitter, 2 hits out of the infield, and only 2 outs out of the infield.
And it's lined into center field by Grissom, and Lofton can't make the catch. And Marquise goes about 1/3 of the way towards second, but holds there. So Grissom has both Atlanta hits.
Now this ball can be caught. Maybe it may not should have been caught, but it could have been caught. Lofton, that ball should have been caught. I'll change that. That ball's got to be caught. You don't see Kenny Lofton drop many balls like this. I mean, that ball hit him right in the breadbasket.
Yeah, we might have been hasty in scoring at a single, but they have scored at a base hit.
Yeah, I'm surprised that's a base hit. I mean, by rights, that should be an error.
And he's shaking off that right hand or wrist. Now Polonia. Grissom at first base. He stole second in the first inning. And then advanced as far as third, but was stranded there. Polonia going to the National League from the American. And at around the same time, Hill went the other way, so the two have never faced each other before.
Grissom ran on the first pitch his first time on first. Will he run on the first pitch again?
He stays, pitch up and away, ball 1.
Yeah, Hill with the Cardinals, very easy to steal on. 20 out of 23. With Cleveland, 6 out of 9, which is not a bad percentage if you throw out 33% of the runners. But a big guy slow to the plate. He'll try to get quicker here.
Bluff's going, and the pitch is stroked foul off to the left. 1-1. Jimmy Williams flashing the signs after receiving them from Cox.
You might say, why does a runner like Marquise Grissom bluff running from first base? Well, what you do, you make the middle infielders commit towards second base, and that in itself can open up a hole on the left or right side. That's the reason he does it.
And I think if Polonia, Timmy, if he was a pull hitter, you maybe waited out, try to give Polonia the hole into right field. But since he isn't, and you have a guy that's slow to the plate, and that's Hill, and a guy that can run it first, why wait?
Nobody out in the third with no score. The total's identical. Each team no runs, 2 hits, and no errors. Bobby has to squint without those glasses.
We understand that.
Yes, we do. There he goes. Gets a good jump and the pitch. Great play by the shortstop Vizquel to get the out. Omar almost overran it. He was running over to the bag to cover it. Had to backtrack just a bit. Short hopped the ball. And that's why this guy is regarded by a lot of people as the best right now at his position.
And a case could be made that if Grissom isn't running here, that ball's a base hit into center field. But the ball hit right where Vizquel was going. He short hopped the play. 67 chances now, no errors for Vizquel in this postseason. But Polonia hit that ball right on the button.
Now Jones. Swing and a miss. You saw the expression of Polonia, but Polonia has seen a lot of Vizquel before because Luis had spent his whole career in the American League prior to going over.
Yeah, well, you did what you wanted to do, Luis. You wanted to hit it hard, and you just happened to hit it to the wrong guy.
Grissom at second. 1 out, and Jones hits it to the right side. Perry shovels perfectly to Hill for the out. 2 down. Grissom now at third. So again, Marquise at third base with 2 out. That was the case in the first inning. And in this exact situation, they pitched around McGriff in effect. They did throw him 1 strike, but walked him on 5 pitches, and then Justice grounded out.
Now, Timmy, you mentioned between innings that really wasn't a pitch around. It was more or less make your pitch.
Yeah, it's kind of you know, I think the first at bat, I mean, he did throw the 2-0 pitch for a strike. It's almost like late innings. Instead of guarding the line, you're about halfway, and that's almost how a pitcher and a catcher work a guy like McGriff in this situation.
Half swing strike, 0-1.
And the deeper into the count you go, the farther out of the strike zone you go. As you say,
right.
Jim, expand the strike zone.
So that's why he throws him a splitter. If he's going to swing at it, fine. If not, the last thing you want to do, I mean, you watched McGriff hit the home run last night. You saw him homer off Hershiser. Fastballs in the middle of the plate, 1 up, 1 down. You don't want to make that mistake here.
Away, 1-1.
I mean, really what you bank on is that McGriff will get out of his mold and start swinging at balls. And a lot of hitters will do that in clutch situations, 2 outs, runners in scoring position.
Do you throw him any pitch in the strike zone?
Well, you go for the periphery, the edges. You become Greg Maddux.
That's a Maddux-like pitch. Yep. 1 and 2.
Now things change, however. Now you try to get him out. You have pitched him so effectively that you forget about the pitch around situation now.
They rise as 1 at Jacobs Field for the 1-2 pitch. Ooh, 2 and 2.
That's what I talked about, agonizing. We've had a good year whether we win or not. Right, Bobby? You have, but you want to win.
Full count. Justice on deck. Now 1 for 26 in his career against Hill. Grissom at third. 2 out. No score in the third. And he loses him. So he gets ahead 1 and 2 and then throws 3 straight balls, and McGriff walks for the second time. So again, the inning parallels the first with first and third 2 out and Justice the batter.
And you can see Mike Hargrove talking about what Tim McCarver said. McGriff again could be running in this situation.
I think Bobby Cox, if he does send McGriff, he'll give Justice a couple of strikes. If it's 0 and 2, 1 and 2, then send him. But 2 great at bats and 2 very patient at bats by Fred McGriff.
Foul back, 0-1.
See, Justice 1 for 26 swings at exactly the same pitches that McGriff took. And you can see him talking to himself saying, stay back. Yes, I hurt my shoulder diving for a ball in May. I'm not the guy that 3 years ago hit 40 home runs. Let's just try to have a nice, concise swing and get a strike to hit.
1 and 1.
Nice play by Alomar. It's like being on what? An elevator, up and down.
1 and 2.
Yeah, this brings up the point you just mentioned. You do not throw the ball anywhere in the middle of the plate here if you can. There's a splitter that it really hangs up in the strike zone, but Justice misses it.
And again, another good running situation with McGriff.
But he stays, and the pitch is grounded down to the first baseman, Perry, unassisted. Atlanta leaves 2 more after 2.5. 0-0. Bottom of the third. What a way to do it, huh? You go to the World Series and tablecloth and fine wine in the Stadium Club here.
Nothing wrong with that.
No. Saturday night on ABC. Halloween treat, the Jeff Foxworthy Show, maybe this time, and then Hocus Pocus is Saturday night at the movies, right here on ABC. Kenny Lofton in the bottom of the third inning. Here was the play that started the top of the third, and it was scored a base hit. Grissom wound up getting as far as third, but was stranded there. Now Kenny leads off in the bottom of the third inning. Strike, 0-1. Well, Lofton has been the table setter throughout postseason, the guy to get things stirred up and get things started. And why not? He was a point guard at the University of Arizona and played in the Final Four in 1988. And that's what point guards do. 0-2.
Yeah, and Steve Avery knows. I mean, he might have watched the at-bats he had against Randy Johnson. I mean, some of the greatest at-bats I saw up in Seattle. And Avery 198, and that's how you get that big sweeping curveball, devastating if you don't hang in there if you're left-handed.
Ooh, strike three, looking away and got it in.
Well, the reason he was looking away was because of that previous curveball. So you curve him away, pop him inside. Good pitch selection by Lopez and Avery. After the curveball, fastball locks Lofton.
And look at Lopez's glove. And that ball, I mean, about an inch of the plate. And again, you know, I think why Lofton did a perfect explanation, Timmy. He thought the ball was inside.
Avery had a surgeon's touch on Lofton right there. Strike one to Vizquel, 0-1.
A lot of times it's not the pitch and the location of the pitch. It's how you got there. And Avery, masterful, throwing the breaking ball away and then coming back with the fastball.
1-1. Metaphor for life, isn't it? Not the destination, it's the journey.
How you got there.
Yeah. 2-1.
Well, I'll tell you, Avery got here. He had 25 coming out of John F. Kennedy High School from Taylor, Michigan. I mean, what a senior year. 2 no-hitters, 7 shutouts, 88 in the third innings, 180-some strikeouts.
Grounded down to Jones, who was playing in on the grass. And it's an easy play. 2 down. And now Baerga will come up.
And not only could he pitch, he hit .511 with 8 home runs. Did it all at the high school level. And I guess the irony is that the Indians drafted Mark Lewis when they could have taken Avery. And Lewis, we saw with the grand slam for Cincy against the Dodgers. Avery could be pitching in a different uniform tonight.
It's always funny to look at the things you could have done and the way they turned out. And then you look at somebody like Mike Piazza of the Dodgers, who was about the 9 millionth guy drafted the year he went. So where was everybody there?
Yeah, or a guy like Doc Gooden, who was drafted 6th in the country. Remarkable that 5 players could have been drafted in front of Dwight Gooden in 1982.
Or how about Jose Canseco, 15th round?
Yeah.
Strike. 2-1. Bat warming ceremony taking place in the dugout. Different ways to warm bats. When Bobby Mercer played with the Giants at Candlestick Park, he used to warm his bats by placing them in the sauna for an hour. Most coddled bats in history.
Did he sleep with them like Ron Stone of the Phillies?
No, but he ordered a massage for them.
I think that could break up a marriage, you know. Bats in bed.
Good. And we'll be back right after this. Well, maybe we won't. It's foul back and the count 3-2.
Boy, my first wife hated when I brought the rosin bag up there after a tough loss.
Jeez. She should have gotten 75% for that.
Well, you can tell you live in California.
3-2 the count. 2 out, bases empty. No score in the third. And that's line to right field, but right into the glove of David Justice. To the 4th with no score. Back we come with the 1995 World Series after this from our ABC stations. Fourth inning, Al Michaels with Jim Palmer and Tim McCarver. No score, game 4 of the World Series. And leading things off is Ryan Klesko in the fourth inning. He walked in the second. He's followed by Lopez and Lemke, the 6, 7, and 8 hitters in the order. Ken Hill missing low and inside, 2-0. Maddox and Hershiser tomorrow. And then they'll stay in rotation. Both teams will for a 6th game in Atlanta if necessary. Glavine and Martinez. And it also means if a 7th game is to be played on Sunday night in Atlanta, you'd have a rematch of last night's starters. Nagy going against Smoltz. 3-1.
You talked about how mature Ryan Klesko is. I mean, this is a guy, if you watch him hit all year, that eventually is going to hit 35, 45 home runs. I mean, he has that type of swing.
Popped up. Looking for room is Espinosa. Nice catch. Not only fighting the railing, but a camera down there as well. Has to know exactly where he is and stay with it. And that one was hit a mile high as well. Good play.
He's fighting the railing and the dugout steps. It's close enough to the dugout that he's got to be wary of that also. Good play by Espinosa.
Just watch his right hand feel for the rail right there. I mean, he knows he's on the warning track right there. Got it. Big out.
Now Javi Lopez takes outside. 1-0.
The only reason I say it's a big out, you go 3-0 on Klesko. It looks like you're going to walk him, and all of a sudden you got 1 out. You know, you mentioned some of the big hits. It's apparent to me in the fourth game is that they respect Lopez as a good fastball hitter. That's what he hit for the home run off Dennis Martinez. And it has been breaking ball. If they do come with the fastballs, try to stay out of the middle of the plate. Like that.
Perfect example. 1 and 2.
They threw him nothing but slop last night. If they did come in, they would just come in with a fastball.
95. That's getting up near Wohlers. To right field and deep, and that one is off the top of the fence. Ramirez plays the carom, and winding up at second base is Lopez with a double. Last night Lemke hit one off the wall, and Ramirez played it perfectly and held him to a single, but this one jutted out towards center field as it rebounded, and Javier at second base.
As a matter of fact, the ball that Lemke hit was about the same height as this ball. It's about 2.5 feet from the top. Played nicely by Ramirez. I'm going to say the speed of Ken Hill is not really the most important thing. The one thing the radar gun doesn't show is how heavy the ball is when you make contact. And that's what all the hitters, when they talk about Hill, they talk about that.
Now Lemke, after the first extra base hit of the game, 0-1.
And also, Timmy, he's kind of a short armor, so you see a lot of the body, the jersey, and then the arm. Very unusual. Keeps it very close to his body. Just watch how his front side will come first.
Ground ball right side. Baerga scoops it up, and that's the second out and on the play. Lopez advances to third. It's the third time in the game the Braves have had a runner at third. 2 down, and Rafael Belliard coming up, a guy who had 222 during the regular season with 7 runs batted in.
And this is a situation where the Cleveland outfield cannot allow a ball to drop in front of them. Albert Bell's too deep in left field, but both Lofton and Ramirez are playing the proper depth. Rafael Belliard's last home run was in May of 1987. As a matter of fact, it's his only major league homer. No power whatsoever.
0-1.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, that Albert Bell took about 3 steps back.
He's coming in about 3 steps right now, but he's still too deep. Belliard have to hit a ball twice to get it to him.
Belliard 0 for 9 in the World Series and 3 for 25 in postseason. And he gets a line drive right into Baerga's glove. So the Braves leave another man at third. Middle of the fourth. No score in Cleveland. Well, those those of you tuning in to see the Drew Carey Show Wednesday nights here on ABC, we didn't disappoint you. There's the man. He's a Clevelander originally. Big Indians fan. Hit us up for tickets tonight. We couldn't help him out, but somebody did, and here he is in the ballpark. Drew Carey, great show Wednesday nights on ABC. No score as we go to the bottom of the 4th inning. Albert Bell to lead things off. Bell, Murray, and Ramirez.
So far, both pitchers have been remarkably sharp to have had that long a layoff as Jim was talking about in the opener.
Yeah, really only one walk for Avery, and that was to Bell.
Bell 2 for 10 in the World Series. 1-0. When you speak of batters who get extension, he is the prototype. 1-1.
Batters who get extensions get extensions.
Right. Yeah. Long-term extensions.
Right.
And speaking, yeah, Albert Bell crushes. John Hart will sign him. They got an option on him for 1996 at about $5.5 million. A lot of bucks, but I'll tell you what. You know anybody else that hit 52 doubles and 50 home runs this year?
In 143 games.
One ball, 2 strikes. And that's away. 2 balls and 2 strikes on Bell. You know, you think about Bell, who would you liken him to? Look at George Foster's numbers at the same age, and that's about when George was coming into his prime. He had been around for a while and really started to mature in the mid-70s as Bell takes called strike 3. Boy, Avery doing just a masterful job. Off speed away and then busts him inside and down he goes.
Matter of fact, all 4 pitches were away, and then boom. You remember the Lofton strikeout, the breaking ball away, fastball inside. Good job by Avery.
Yeah, Albert did not like that call. You can see right there, he thought the ball was in off the plate. But
Albert's already gotten away with one, the 3-2 breaking ball that he swung. He shouldn't have walked the first time, in fairness.
Away, ball 1. 1-0. Albert likes to use that magic word a lot, but as we said during the playoffs, if you use that word to an umpire in its adjectival form, you're okay. But as a command or an interjection, then you're out.
Yeah, you best make it a remark like that near the water cooler.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe to the water cooler.
Yeah, the interjection for the ejection.
Right. That's when the umpire says bleep you and you're out. Here's the 2-0 pitch. Ball 3, 3-0.
Well, they were all talking about 0 for 5 last night. You need a game-winning hit. Even though Eddie did not look good last night, the guy you won up in that position. Single to center. A win.
And he's on. So Murray draws the walk. Second walk issued by Avery, and it will bring up Ramirez. Game 4 of the 1995 World Series is being brought to you by Buick and your local dealers. Remember, Buick, the new symbol for quality in America. Sun America, the retirement savings specialist. And the makers of Advil. Jacobs Field, Cleveland. Al Michaels with Jim Palmer, Tim McCarver. 4th game of the World Series. Game 5 right here on ABC tomorrow. Maddox, Hershiser, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. In the air to center field, but a lot of room out there for Marquise Grissom. And that's the second out. Manny Ramirez gone, 2 away, and Herbert Perry coming to the plate.
You know, a lot of times in baseball, you hear about pitchers being taken off the hook. Well, last night, Manny Ramirez was taken off the hook because the Indians won that game on the base hit by Murray. With the score 4-1 in favor of the Indians, bases loaded in the 4th inning. Ramirez hits into the double play off Brad Klontz. It kept the Braves in the game. So Ramirez was taken off the hook like a pitcher is often taken off a hook.
Ball 1 to Perry, 1-0. A lot of talk around the stadium tonight. Was it good for baseball that Cleveland won last night? Was it good for the real good thing for baseball is the way these games have been tight and tense and right down to the end, and this has the makings of another one. 1-1.
Really,
very good World Series so far.
All of postseason. The remarkable series, the Yankees against the Seattle Mariners, will go down in infamy as far as the Yankees are concerned, and may have saved baseball in Seattle.
1-2.
Yeah, the recent word is that the commissioners apparently have okayed a new ballpark up in Seattle. Vote 10-3.
I was going to say, what commissioner? Oh,
the commission.
You're talking
county
about the ones that, county commission. Thought you meant baseball.
Speaking of acting commissioners, Bud Selig, owner of the Brewers, here tonight. No score with 2 out, 4th inning. Murray at first base. Perry platooning in the World Series with Paul Sorrento. 2-2.
From Live Oak, Florida. I said, Herbert, where is that from? He said, about 30 miles east of Tallahassee. He said, we got 2 TV stations. I said, thank God one was sports.
Quarterback with Florida State. Great hands.
He proved that last night. Chopped foul at the plate.
Well, you know, you're funny. The Indians win 100 games. And the Braves win 90. But Herbert Perry says, you know, I'd like to be playing every day, but on this ball club, I learn a lot about playing the game. A lot of veterans. You know, a lot of middle guys that have been around, a lot of rookies. Very content to play every once in a while and, you know, hit over 300. Didn't hit for as much power as he would have liked to this year.
And that squibbed foul outside third. Still 2-2.
But Jimmy, I mean, I never, you know, I was a pitcher. It got to be hard to come to the big leagues after playing regular in the minor leagues and sit on the bench and still be productive.
Well, it depends on where you're going. If you're going to a contender, a team that already has a first baseman, then you're much more understanding. I'd rather sit on the bench in the majors and play regularly in the minors.
That's grounded, just foul outside third.
I really think that Herbert Perry is being groomed to be an everyday player. Thing about right-handed hitters, for the most part, all things considered equal, you don't platoon a right-handed batter nearly as much as you would a left-handed batter. A guy like Paul Sorrento, who starts against very few left-handers, but Perry would start against a lot of right-handers once he proves that he's worthy of playing Major League ball. And he's done that.
2 balls, 2 strikes on Perry. 2 out. Murray at first base. No score in the 4th. Full count, and Murray will be off and running with a pitch. Espinosa on deck. I love that look. I just love it. Murray ready to take off. He goes on the 3-2 pitch, which is lined to left field. But right there, moving toward the line, is Polonia to put it away. Through 4, no score. Bob Feller and Cleveland baseball, synonymous terms. There he is, and he's with Leslie Visser. Leslie?
Al, the best pitcher of his time, Bob Feller. Bob, does anyone on this team remind you of the 2 World Series teams that you played on?
Well, probably be, Kenny Lofton in center field reminds me a little bit of Larry Doby. He's not as big, he's not as strong, and he made home runs. Larry was fast. There's not really anyone on these two teams that reminds me of anybody of a 1948 club. Not really. It was completely different. And but it's a great ballpark, and great World Series.
It's been a long time between World Series wins here. You have a Buckeye that you've carried for years?
Oh, I had this Buckeye when I was a little kid in Iowa, since I was 14 years old. And always carry it with me. It usually brings good luck. I hope it brings good luck this fall.
Maybe that and Jose Mesa in the ninth. Back to you, Al.
It's a great series, and may the best team win.
Thank you, Leslie. As Grissom leads off here in the 5th inning with no score. 2 for 2 is Marquise. And he hits it in the air to center field, and Kenny Lofton drifts back, makes the catch. 1 away. And Polonia coming up. Bob Feller. And, you know, you have to go back a way to remember Bob Feller pitching, but there are some of the numbers that he posted. 266 wins, 279 complete games, which, of course, something like that will not be duplicated ever again, as far as we can tell, the way pitching is these days.
You know, talk about Ted Williams missing 5 years in the military. Feller, at the top of his career, missed 4. So you could probably add somewhere between 90 to 110 wins, and he'd be right up there with Warren Spahn, you know, the winningest left-hander of all time.
Sure. Polonia is swinging and missing, and the count 1-1.
Bob Feller, the only pitcher ever to pitch an opening day no-hitter.
Oh, you might as well get it out of the way, Timmy. If you're going to pitch one.
1 of 3 he pitched.
I mean, everybody's there.
You don't have to worry about it for the rest of the year, right?
That's over the glove of Hill and over second base into center field. So Polonia has a single.
I mean, opening day, everybody's there. Do it.
Yep. That's right. Big crowd.
2 balls back up the middle. 1 by Grissom, this one by Polonia. And Kenny Hill, pretty good fielding position, but that ball just too high and hit with overspin, and it hops into second base, and Polonia will most likely be running.
280 career stolen bases. A lot of people forget that. At least Polonia can fly.
Oh, he had a couple of years out in Oakland, Timmy, where he stole over 50. Not a great on-base percentage. And California. You know, the Yankees last year did not run that much. I think, check that, you're right. I think California is where he had the 50 stolen bases. They've been thrown out somewhere over 20 times.
Missing to Jones, ball 1.
You talk about young players, and Chipper Jones, we talked about Manny Ramirez, both of them the same age, and it seems like Jones has been playing for years.
And there he goes, and the pitch is grounded back to Hill, who looks at second, no play there, settles for the out at first, and Polonia at second base now with 2 down, and McGriff coming to the plate. And again, you come into a situation where first base is open, and here's McGriff.
Even more so now because we're in the 5th inning. Hit and run. Polonia with a good jump. No play for Hill at second base, and he settles for the out at first. You may just see an intentional walk right here instead of a pitch around, because it's getting deeper into the game.
Yep. Well, they've worked around him on 2 occasions in disparate ways. First time on 5 pitches. The second time Hill was actually ahead 1-2 and lost him, and he misses outside.
This appears to be one of those unintentional intentional deals. I would be surprised if Fred sees a strike in this at bat.
Well, I'll second that. And just about an inning and a half ago, we saw David Justice, who will be coming up if they do walk around McGriff, talking to Clarence Jones. Jones, the batting instructor.
2-0 the count.
See if he can make some kind of adjustment if they do pitch around McGriff.
You can put carbon paper in the 1st, 3rd, and 5th innings tonight in effect. Man in scoring position, 2 out, McGriff at the plate. And he's on his way to his 3rd walk. The count 3-0.
I think Mike Hargrove ought to just walk him right now. 3-0. Why take another chance?
Alomar was looking over toward the dugout. Here's Mark Wiley, the pitching coach.
McGriff will certainly not get a fastball down the pipe here.
On the outside corner, 3-1.
And if you're wondering why they're pitching McGriff so carefully, I mean, this is a guy that has hit 30 or more home runs as we look at David Justice on deck in 7 consecutive years. This year didn't do it with only 27. So you better not put one in the middle of the plate. I got to think, Timmy, he's probably looking, and he's this type of hitter. He'll sit on a breaking ball. Right here, he may be looking for something off speed.
Things go according to Hoyle, that's what he'll get.
Instead, a fastball hit in the air, a sinking fastball hit in the air to center field, and McGriff is gone. At the end of 4½, no score.
After that at bat by Fred McGriff, Mike Hargrove, the Cleveland manager, just reassuring Sandy Alomar that even if you walk a guy like McGriff in that situation, then you go ahead and take your chances with Justice. And as it was, either a splitter or a sinker out of the strike zone away, and McGriff kept it in the ballpark.
Got away with one. I mean, every series is a second guesser's paradise. That would have been a classic, though, if McGriff would have gone out.
Absolutely.
Bottom of the 5th inning. Espinosa at the plate. Strike. We never second. We always first guess, though.
You tried to, but sometimes you're in a position where you second guess is the only guess left.
Right.
Try to cover all the options.
Well, so far you can't second guess Bobby Cox going with this young man.
No.
Steve Avery.
No.
I mean, he got hit hard in the 1st inning, but not since then. And I'll tell you what, he is back to where he was. I mean, he struggled this year, 7-13 with a 4.67 ERA. His last 3 starts and then one in the playoffs. Magnificent.
Hit softly down to second. Lemke juggles a very easy play. Something you almost never see Mark Lemke about as good as they get at second base. That was almost too easy.
Well, this entire pitching staff talking about Atlanta, saying this guy is as good as anybody in the National League when it comes to fielding or turning the double play. I mean, he follows the ball into his hand. The only thing I can see, Timmy, hands maybe down below a little bit, not out in front. And that ball just bobbled. You hardly ever see that happen.
That's just a big league boot right there. His first error in postseason this year.
Now Alomar at the plate, the number 9 hitter.
Well, we talked about bunting early, Timmy. Do you think you bunt here when you have Lofton on deck? And Avery's so tough against left-handers?
I think I'd opt for a hit and run here. I mean, you get the left-hander Lofton.
Yep.
And then Vizquel has not had a good postseason. I think a hit and run is a better option here than a bunt.
Was a 300 hitter, and there is the hit and run. Fouled away. Even though Alomar's hitting in the 9th spot, he hit 300 during the regular year.
That's in about 220 at bats for Sandy.
Jeff Newman sending out the signs.
Yeah, he put on 6 for 10 the last couple of games to get to 300. They used to run at will off of Steve Avery, but 13 pickoffs, and a lot of them from what doesn't have a good move. Swings his leg back, they go on that. But he will pick you off. He'll step off the rubber and just a quick throw.
In the dirt, throw down to first. No, safe. It's a paradox with Avery. He picks a lot of guys off. In fact, those 13 pickoffs led the majors, but he's also very susceptible to being stolen against.
Stolen bases against him also led the majors. 30 stolen bases and 32 tries to throw late from Lopez.
Yeah, Leo Mazzoni, the pitching coach, there they are. And that is in the National League.
And at topped any American leaguer as well. Andy Pettit of the Yanks led the American League.
Hit and run situation again for Alomar. The one thing, if you're the runner on at first base, you cannot get picked off in this situation. It's to be distinguished by the stolen base, 30 against Avery this year, Nomo second. But you've got to make sure the pitcher pitches in this situation.
He goes, the pitch is waved at and missed. He got a late break and he tries to get back to first and he's thrown out. Everything went wrong for the Indians on that play. He had a small lead, a late break. The pitch was way outside. Alomar waved at it to cost him a strike, and the break was so bad that Espinosa had to go back to first.
Small lead, late break is appropriate right here. We said you don't get picked off. Espinosa, realizing he doesn't have a good jump, tries to get back to first, but he's tagged out. Look at the pitch, however, to handle that Alomar had.
Yep.
That's what a manager tries to do. He tries to get the hitter a good pitch to hit, and Alomar wasn't successful then.
So 1 out, base is empty, and now the 1-2 pitch is fouled back out of play.
I mean, think about it. Avery's been around the plate all night, and the worst pitch as far as being far away from the plate was the second hit and run attempt by Alomar.
There's little Leo. You know, he finally told Avery, he said, "Are you sick and tired of them stealing bases?" He said yes. He says, "Well, let's do something about it." So he slide step, worked on his pickoff move, but still not a great move. But I'll tell you what, he can pitch. Keep him off the bases.
And that's lifted to shallow right center field. Dave Justice will put it away, and with 2 down, it will bring up Lofton. You know, as critical as last night's game was for the Cleveland Indians to win, to avoid going down 0-3, tonight's game is almost as critical, because if they go down 3-1, you're faced with Maddox in your home park. And then if you can somehow beat Maddox, you still have to win 2 more on the road. So tonight's game for Cleveland is about as important as last night's.
No doubt about it.
The Braves have a little more breathing room, because in a series tied 2-2, at least they would have those 2 at home if necessary, plus Maddox on the road. 1-0 the count. 2 out, bases empty in the 5th. Lofton 0 for 2 tonight. 1-1. Kenny, another of those guys plucked from another roster by the Cleveland Indians, by John Hart and company. Team up with Houston. They got him in a trade. They got Vizquel in a trade. Baerga in a trade. Murray they signed as a free agent. Espinosa in a deal. Alomar in a deal. And their pitcher tonight, Ken Hill, as well. And that's grounded toward the middle. Belliard is there to field back of second and throw him out. So the error by Lemke not costly to the 6th. 0-0 at Jacobs Field. From the Goodyear Blimp Stars and Stripes, a look into old Cleveland Stadium. Used to be known as Municipal Stadium. Still the home of the Browns. The World Series was played there in 48 and 54. Before crowds in excess of 80,000, and at the top of the screen, that's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In a city where there's been a lot of rocking and rolling, and that is the Goodyear Blimp Spirit of Akron. Aaron Jenkins at the controls tonight. Patrick Henry was up there last night, but he said after that long evening, give me helium or get me out of here. So Aaron Jenkins is the guy tonight.
Yeah, we had a chance on Monday night to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
You did?
Oh, yeah. We were rocking and rolling, yeah. Timmy and I. I was working. No, that's right. You were, weren't you? Well, we got home by 9.
Mm-hmm.
You were in Foxborough.
Foxborough, that's
yep.
Right. Monday Night Football next week in Minneapolis against the Vikings against the Chicago Bears. Here in the 6th inning, Dave Justice fouls it off in the count 0-1. So another good game. A 1-run game Saturday in game 1. Same thing Sunday game 2. Great game last night, 4 hours 9 minutes. And another beauty building tonight in game 4. 1-1. Justice, Klesko, and Lopez.
Talk about baseball and football and the stadium here, Municipal Stadium. How would you like to explain the game of baseball to somebody? What a weird game. The defense holds the ball at the beginning of each play, and the offense never lays a finger on it.
Never quite thought of it that way. In the air to center field and deep, and Lofton goes back but has room and makes the catch. 403 feet away.
You know, talked about how this park plays small, and talking to Charlie Manuel and a lot of the hitters here, they said there's only been 3 balls hit over the center field fence. Ramirez, Bell, and right here you can see why. Long way, and Lofton checking it out all the way. We saw a great play last night. You know, that's pretty routine for him, as good as he is. And David Justice says, boy, I could have just hit it a little bit farther to left or right.
2 feet in front of that marker for out number 1. Klesko walked, fouled out. He drilled one over the wall in left center last night. Strike. 1-1.
Yeah, they said the ball just seems to carry a little bit better to left center and right center in this ballpark.
No score. One of the fascinating things that's happening in this game right now is you have, as Klesko argues the call, you have each team's number 4 starter working and pitching beautifully. But we're going to get down to the point where you've got Wohlers and Mesa, and they both pitched a lot last night as that's drilled to right field and out of here. So Klesko didn't like the call on the prior pitch, and then Hill sends one into the groove for him, and Klesko, who homered off Hill on the 9th of June in Atlanta when Ken was with the St. Louis Cardinals, duplicates the feat here. 1-0.
That was before tonight's game, the last regular season at bat against Hill, a home run by Klesko. And we said the offense never lays a finger on it, but they occasionally lay the good part of the bat on it, and that's what Klesko does here. Split finger fastball, and it's a rocket to right.
And he knew it, and Lopez takes away ball 1.
And we talked about, you know, the outstanding pitching here tonight, but here in the 6th, 2 guys up, 2 balls hit well. And if you're Mike Hargrove, even though you used your closer last night, you may want to go to the bullpen or at least get somebody up.
Lopez lifts one to center field. 2 down, and Lemke will come up. So when you get down to the end tonight with Mesa pitching 3 innings last night for Cleveland, Wohlers going 2 2/3 last night for Atlanta, both managers said, if I had to get an inning out of my guy, I think I could. But that's easy to say before the game. Lemke takes a strike. 0-1.
I really don't think a solo home run denotes whether a pitcher is fatigued or not. I mean, sometimes you got to tip your hat to the hitter, and unless you have a multiple run inning, I think a guy like Hill's perfectly capable of shutting the Braves down the rest of the way.
Lemke to Lofton. So Kenny with all of the putouts in the inning, but a Klesko home run makes it 1-0 Braves. Braves Indians tomorrow night, game 4. You know, gents, baseball has a lot of problems. They're not all going to be solved with one postseason, but the games have been so good this postseason, it makes anybody who became disenchanted understand why you love the sport in the first place.
That's true. Terrific games, and you know, the irony here is that the team that bludgeoned their way through the American League, and that is the Cleveland Indians, they've been out-homered here at Jacobs Field 3-0, yet they hit one.
Vizquel, the batter, leading off in the bottom of the 6th inning. And the count 2 balls and no strikes. Vizquel, Baerga, and Bell. Steve Avery. Pitching a gem so far, but behind here, 3-0.
Liable to see Bell or Vizquel taking twice here. That's a strike he'll probably take again and make Avery throw 3 straight strikes. Hargrove looks on, and Avery may have gotten a break by home plate umpire John Hirschbeck. Ball could have been outside.
Three and two.
That almost appeared to be a 3-1 changeup, which I find it hard to believe that he threw. Either that or he took something off. But
yeah,
let's face it tonight.
I think he's just trying to get the ball over the plate, Jim, and sometimes when you do that, you just don't throw it as hard.
And he loses him. So Avery walks him on a full count. Tony Pena leads the cheerleading, and Baerga comes to the plate. And Bobby can only shake his head and say to Mazzoni, how in the world does he throw that pitch 3 and 2?
Well, that can spell big trouble. In the American League this year, when you fail to get the first batter off 54% of the time they scored. And then when you have 3, 4, and 5 coming up, I got to think the numbers might even get up a little bit higher than that.
Especially with this offense.
Avery with a flip throw to first base to drive him back.
Vizquel with 29 steals, but I can't believe he's going to be going anywhere on a straight steal this early in the inning.
Baerga 1 for 2 tonight as a right-handed batter this season. He hit .345.
You know, that's the one thing he really improved. I mean, this is a guy in 92 and 93, Carlos Baerga. We'll take another look at Avery's. He'll just kind of step off. Whoops, there it is. If that leg goes behind the pitching rubber, he has to come home. If that knee stays to the home plate side, he can go either way.
1-0.
But he's needlessly worrying about Vizquel. I mean, you got 3, 4, and 5 of these guys who can pound the ball. If you're Avery, you forget about the guy at first. As you said, the chances of him running are remote unless it's a hit and run.
I mean, for 2 straight years, this guy hit over 20 home runs, over 200 hits, over 300, and drove over 100 runs. Pretty good numbers. I'd be concerned about him.
I think Steve has the accent on the wrong syllable right now. He's thrown to first base 3 times. And Vizquel did have 29 stolen bases, but they were in other situations.
And that's line down the left field line, hooking and going foul. Long, loud strike, 1-1.
Bobby Cox is probably thinking that right now. Don't worry about the guy at first base. Worry about the guy with the stick in his hand, because they're the ones who could beat you. This ball just fouled down the left field line. 4 feet.
Yeah, that's what I call getting lucky. They don't make a good pitch, and Carlos not being able to stay back. Hooks it foul.
Ball 2. And that's grounded down to Jones. To Lemke 1. Turns it over to first. Scooped out, double play. Jones to Lemke, and then McGriff able to scoop it out of the dirt. 5-4-3.
And sometimes as a second baseman, you have to guess where the runner is going to try to take you out. What position is the runner going to be? This ball hit off the handle. Baerga slipped, leaving home plate. But look at Lemke. Very adeptly stepping back and making the play. Vizquel coming straight in. Lemke simply stepped back. Here's the slip by Baerga going out of the box. And that allowed Lemke to turn it. Nicely done.
2 down, bases empty. The first double play of the game. And Albert Bell at the plate. Strike on the corner and off speed. A walk and a strikeout for Bell tonight, and Avery hasn't given him one decent pitch to hit. feet away. 1-1.
Charlie Manuel, the hitting instructor, saying, you know, we're not a very good situational hitting, except in the sense when pitchers get behind 2-0 and 3-1. That's how we hit 207 home runs. We got guys that can bomb the ball.
Outside corner, 1-2.
But we're seeing why a couple of years ago they thought that Glavine, Maddox, Smoltz, and Avery are going to maybe win 20 games because of being able to make those kind of pitches. Stay out of the middle of the plate, change speeds, use all your pitches.
And that's hit down the right field line and deep and into the corner, and it is gone.
You may remember earlier we said it's not necessarily the pitch, it's how you got there. And Avery kept going away, 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 and that's what Bell does with it. He goes away, taking it the other way. We have a tie ball game.
Now Murray. When you can hit a ball like that, I mean, that's all you need to know about how strong Bell is.
Yeah, you wonder if he would have been able to hit that ball with authority if he hadn't moved up on the plate.
Crowd chanting, Eddie, Eddie.
So he moved up on the plate, and he makes an adjustment and readjusts to score. Ties it up 1 apiece.
This is Avery's 98th pitch, and that's grounded, just foul.
Why did
You know, you're right. The third base umpire, Wendelstedt, looked down at Jim McKean.
That's right.
To see what McKean was going to call. It's really Harry's call.
That's exactly right. I mean, McKean can't make the call because Harry's in front of him. I mean, what's going on? Watch Harry Wendelstedt. It's his call all the way.
That ball's
a fair ball.
Sure.
Harry, watch him look at Jim McKean. Well, Jim McKean's behind him, and once he calls it foul, Harry calls it foul.
It is where the ball crosses the bag on that play. It's not where it lands.
That's right.
It's where the ball is in the air as it crosses third base.
I'll tell you, Mike Hargrove has got the argument because he saw the reaction of Harry Wendelstedt. And by that reaction, he said, wait a minute, something's fishy here.
Sure.
And he has a good point. That was a bad call by Harry Wendelstedt. That was no call by Harry Wendelstedt.
You know, you go back to last night's ball game, a double by Alomar that does go over the bag is called fair, and Jim McKean, who is right here, calls it foul.
How can he see the play with Wendelstedt in front of him?
Yeah, that whole play it's simple. It's the third base umpire saying, okay, the ball is either over the base when it passes it, or it's in foul ground.
Right.
As simple as that. The left field umpire has nothing to do with that play. Wacky. You know, the crazy thing is, a lot of people say, as they do with the NFL, why don't they put the best officials in postseason? Well, I've got to tell you, the two guys who've made calls in this series that are very dubious, Wendelstedt here and Fleming the other night, are as good as they get.
That's right.
I mean, Harry Wendelstedt and Bruce Fleming are great umpires. Normally. Two and one.
It's almost like Harry's looking down to see if that ball bounced. Kind of like playing on hard tree and true in tennis. Can I see the spot where? Show me the mark.
Yeah, but the mark means nothing. The mark is in oxygen.
If he were at Wimbledon, he would have had a complaint from McEnroe, I'll tell you that.
You ready, Eddie?
If he had been anywhere, he would have got a complaint from McEnroe.
100 pitches for Avery. Off speed, half swing, no. Ball 3. Frank Pulley, the first base umpire.
close.
Two out, bases empty. And the 3-2 pitch coming up to Eddie Murray. Ball 4. So Eddie probably should have had a double. Winds up with half of it. 2-out walk, and Ramirez comes up.
Half a double's better than none.
That's right. You know, you bet it any time of the night, too.
You mentioned last inning, Timmy, that you know, you don't take a guy out because of some long fly balls, but if you're Bobby Cox and you get a pitcher that stops throwing strikes, then you got to get somebody up.
Yeah, especially third time through the lineup, and you have a left-handed pitcher that is zeroed in on the outside corner to right-handers to where they're looking for it so much that it ceases to be outside on the outside corner anymore. You have all the right-handers going out over the plate like Bell did to hit the home run.
Now Brad Klontz, who pitched in relief last night, starts to throw in the Atlanta bullpen. Funny thing about the Braves, we talked about Wohlers, 2 2/3. They're short man, so can he pitch tonight? And if he can, it will be very briefly. There's some question about Alejandro Pena and his arm right now, and back as well. Merker pitched a lot last night. McMichael was also on in relief last night. Things are going to get pretty fascinating here. Ramirez low for a ball, 1-0. Murray held on by McGriff at first base. 2 out. Inside.
You know, a lot of times you're not supposed to show your emotions and wear them on your sleeves. Pedro Baborn, the left-hander, and Brad Klontz, the right-hander, but Avery putting his head down because he's lost control of the strike zone. They're a little tentative.
And they're going to call a balk. Frank Pulley, the first base umpire, called a balk.
I think Avery broke his hands while he was still on the rubber and then stepped off.
Yeah, you have to really step off, and then let's see if he does it. Comes to the set position.
No, that was a balk.
He lost his balance.
You said he was losing his cool. He's losing his balance as well, Jim.
Well, you know, actually, he does step off.
Yeah, but it's too late.
Well, Eddie Murray certainly helped out Frank Pulley over at first.
So did the crowd. Well, Murray is where he belongs, at second base, because he was jobbed out of what should have been a double, and now an intentional walk with a count 2-0 will be issued to Ramirez, and it will bring up Herbert Perry.
It looked to me like Avery was losing his balance, and instead of remaining on the rubber, he stepped off right before he lost his balance totally. Or he could have tripped on the rubber.
But either way you look at it, he did step off.
He stepped off, but he broke his hands, didn't he?
I don't think he ever got his hands together. But it really doesn't matter what we think. Frank Pulley called it a balk.
So Herbert Perry, last night's defensive hero, comes to the plate with 2 on and 2 out, and the game tied in the 6th.
You know, now Bobby Cox was into numbers. He's been up twice. He's lined out the left field, and he hit .344 against left-handers.
So you think you'd bring in Klontz right
here?
Well,
I'll tell you what, Klontz had some fabulous numbers against right-handed pitching.
I don't think Klontz would be facing a right-hander. However, if you bring the right-hander in, you're going to pinch hit Sorrento.
So you would go with a guy that's been out there.
Strike. A lot made last night about Hargrove leaving Nagy in because he was in the 80s. Mike said he had a lot left. With Cox leaving Avery in here, Avery has now thrown 107 pitches tonight, and this will be his 26th pitch of the inning. Foul back, 1-2.
Seems to me that this is a better matchup, Avery against Perry, than Clontz against Sorrento. I mean, left-handed hitters hit .344 against Brad Clontz this year. So would you rather bring the more experienced Sorrento up there? Would you rather be facing him here or Perry? I think Bobby's got the right matchup right here.
New set of signs, says Steve Avery. 1 ball, 2 strikes, the count. And he got him down and in to end the inning. But the homer by Bell ties it, 1-1 through 6. And back we come after this from our ABC stations.
I tell you, you can smell the tension in this shot. Bobby Cox talking to his pitching coach Leo Mazzoni, and that's going to be all for Steve Avery. Terrific job by Steve tonight, and a great job getting Herbert Perry for the last out in the 6th.
Now Greg McMichael throws in the Atlanta bullpen, and there's also action in the Indian bullpen with Paul Ossenmacher, the left-hander, throwing as Ken Hill gets ready to work in the 7th inning. They have Ossenmacher, and then Tavares, normally the setup man, and then you've got Mesa, the short man, coming off a 3-inning stint last night. Meanwhile, Hill's been terrific outside of one swing of McGriff's or Klesko's bat, and the count 0-1 here. Belliard leading off, the number 9 hitter. Belliard, Grissom, and Polonia. Foul back, 0-2. 1 run, 5 hits, and 1 error for the Braves. The Klesko homer accounting for the scoring. 1 run, 3 hits. No errors for the Indians. The Albert Bell home run accounting for all Cleveland scoring.
Just trying to stay alive. That's what you do. 0-2 against a hard thrower. We've seen it all night long in the mid-90s with the fastball.
Good breaking pitch, and down he goes. 1 out. Grissom coming up. And the 4th game of the 1995 World Series is being brought to you by Burger King, where you can get your burger's worth. The cars and trucks 36 million people depend on every day. Genuine Chevrolet. And Budweiser, the gold medal winning American premium lager at the 1995 Great American Beer Festival. This Bud's for you. Grissom at the plate. That strikeout of Belliard, the first strikeout for Ken Hill tonight.
Yeah, I checked my scorecard. I thought I'd missed a couple.
Yeah, Ken is more or less a contact pitcher. You hear that a lot about hitters, but Ken puts the ball in play.
1-2. We charted him on that last pitch at 90.
When you think about it, most pitchers who keep the ball down don't strike a lot of hitters out. They entice a ground ball. They entice contact. So the more a pitcher keeps the ball down, the more a hitter, generally speaking, puts it in play. Strikeout pitchers, as Jim Palmer was, high fastball pitchers. Slider pitchers that are wicked sliders like a Bob Gibson or a Steve Carlton.
Yeah, you just get a lot of swings and misses. You usually get the high pitch counts. You get a guy like Mark Fidrich, you get a guy like Greg Maddux, who can strike you out, but his intentions are for you to hit the ball and do it early in the count.
And to use the guys behind him.
3-2. If the Indians win the World Series, this guy, Ken Hill, will be one of the great unsung heroes. He was in a similar spot in the fourth game of the American League Championship Series and beat Seattle down 2-1. And he's trying to get him even tonight. Ball 4 here as Grissom walks. And Polonia comes to the plate.
Yeah, he didn't want to do that.
Now you have a bevy of left-handers coming up. Polonia, Chipper Jones, of course, a switch hitter, and then McGriff, Justice, and Klesko.
Well, it goes back to what Mike Hargrove was second-guessed a little bit about last night, is when do you go to your bullpen?
Right.
You know, what matchups do you want? I mean, Hill hasn't pitched in 10 days.
That's hit in the air to right center field, and racing over is Ramirez, and he can't make the play. Grissom around third, being waved in, and scores to give Atlanta the lead on a double by Polonia.
Certainly an erstwhile query on your part, James.
Well, you know, and again, it's not a second guess.
No, it's not at all. You said it before it happened. I mean, you know, if you're going to bring in Assenmacher, why not bring him in to face Polonia and make Bobby Cox make a move, because you're going to take him out right now anyway. And I'm sure that Mike Hargrove will walk Chipper Jones, but now he's got to face McGriff and Justice unless McGriff hits into a double play, whereas before you get a switch of Polonia for a right-handed batter. Well, probably Mike Devereaux.
The case last night with Nagy.
Yep.
And he wanted him to just get through the first two guys and then bring Assenmacher in. And tonight he wanted him to get through one more guy, and that guy Polonia winds up doubling. The hand is for Ken Hill. Great performance, but he leaves trailing. The Braves lead it by a score of 2-1. Good job tonight by Ken Hill, the number 4 starter, but he leaves trailing after going 6 1/3, giving up at least 2 runs. Polonia at second base is his responsibility, and he yields to Assenmacher here with 1 out in the 7th inning, and the Braves on top 2-1. Another 1-run game in a series where we've had 3, and the home team thus far has won each one of them.
Yeah, Paul Assenmacher, and along with all the left-handers in the bullpen for Cleveland, have done an outstanding job with 16 at-bats against the opposing left-handers, 7 strikeouts and only 1 walk.
That walk, excuse me, Jim, that walk was a key walk to Devereaux in game 1.
And that's the point I was going to make, is that very effective against left-handed hittings, even though Jones will in this turn around and be a right-handed batter. But the one thing that Paul's had trouble doing lately, Tim, is getting the curveball over and therefore falling behind a lot of the hitters.
I don't think he'd be facing Jones, however. Mike Hargrove would probably walk Jones and pitch to McGriff or Justice, I would think.
Yeah.
Which will be a lot of irony if he does that, because they've been working around McGriff.
Right.
Now they may work around the man hitting in front of him to get to him. Let's see. Polonia at second base, and 1 out. And they will walk him and go to work lefty against lefty on Fred McGriff. Polonia dancing off second. Be very ironic if Polonia turns out to be the star tonight and a big hero for Atlanta, because he was playing with the Yankees and might still have been with the Yankees had not George Steinbrenner opted to sign Darryl Strawberry. When Strawberry was signed by the Yankees, Polonia was the odd man out, and Atlanta said thank you very much.
Yeah, I guess if you're wondering too, Strawberry was almost a non-factor in the series against Seattle. Luis Polonia much better prepared to play than Darryl was. You wonder if he would have been in the mix with the Yankees playing the Mariners.
Now McGriff takes a strike in the count of 1-1. Lefties out of the Cleveland pen have been terrific in postseason. Ossenmacher, Embry, and Poole collectively, when facing left-handed batters, 0 for 16 are the hitters with 7 strikeouts. Off speed missing, 1-1.
Well, you talk so much about matchups, whether you're talking about the NBA, but here in the big leagues, this is what you want. Even though McGriff can hit left-handers, Ossenmacher's strength 177 lefties hit. So if you're going to have a chance to win tonight, he's got to do the job.
And that one skips to the backstop as Polonia goes to third, takes the turn there and holds, and down to second goes Jones. And runners at second and third now with the count 2 balls and 1 strike.
This ball squirts through the trap door. You can see Alomar not using that right hand, and when a catcher doesn't do that, then he's not utilizing all his equipment. He's reaching for the ball with the glove. That ball's got to be handled. Squirted through the trap door, left open by Alomar. Pass ball and rightly called.
Now the infield has to play in, and the pitch is waved at and missed in the count 2-2. Polonia the runner at third. Chipper Jones at second. Infield in. 2-1 Braves. 1 out. 7th inning. Two. Got him swinging. And that's why a guy like Ossenmacher, who pitches less than an inning per outing, can command the kind of salary that a left-hander can when you come out of the bullpen just for moments like this.
I'll tell you, great pitch at a clutch moment. And Freddie McGriff probably was, I mean, he's looking for the ball, but he's expecting something breaking and still couldn't get the bat on it.
Now he tries to do it again with Dave Justice at the plate.
Well, this is a good choice to pitch to Justice in this situation, not because David has an offer in this game, but because Klesko is on deck, and Ossenmacher would be facing Devereaux and not Klesko. But now it's a lefty-lefty matchup.
Strike, 0-1.
I'll tell you, the amazing thing is Justice has hit, what, about 25 points lifetime better against lefties?
Right.
I guess that's why it's not that shocking that he's hit 364 lifetime off Ossenmacher. Those are some major numbers.
Another strike.
See, the thing is, though, Justice is facing a different Ossenmacher, and Ossenmacher is facing a different Justice.
Crowd to its feet.
Not every pitch is designed to get hitters out. That was a show-me fastball for the breaking ball that's coming next.
And that's grounded into center field for a base hit. Polonia comes in to score, and so does Jones to make it 4-1. He threw the breaking pitch, and Justice, who's had a pretty cool postseason, responds.
It was a hanging slider right over the fat part of the plate. And Justice delivers.
So 2 runs score, 3 in the inning, and it's 4-1. And the crowd has been stilled as Klesko comes up and fouls it away. Klesko started the scoring in the 6th inning tonight. And there was no doubt as he hits his 2nd in 2 nights.
And this matchup right now, lefty against lefty, only because Justice got the hit to drive into. Had Hargrove walked Justice, then you get Devereaux to pinch hit for Klesko in all probability. Now Bobby Cox leaving Klesko in there in case the Indians come back and tie it later. Klesko will hit against the right-handers.
Justice goes, and that's popped foul off to the right and back out of play. 0-2.
Yeah, that was, as you mentioned, not a very good pitch with a 1-2 count, first base open.
A
That
real hanger, wasn't it, Jim?
veteran lefty is going to make.
And down he goes. But the damage done before the inning-ending strikeout. The Braves get 3 and lead 4-1 in Game 4. Paul Assenmacher giving up that 2-run single to Dave Justice. And now for the Braves defensively, Mike Devereaux comes in to play left field. Greg McMichael comes in to pitch. Avery pitching extremely well tonight. And Jim Thome will hit for Alvaro Espinoza as we start the bottom of the 7th inning. Thome, Alomar, and Lofton with the Braves on top 4-1. One and oh. One of the reasons Bobby Cox didn't hit Devereaux for Klesko was that he would have locked Devereaux in as the designated hitter and wouldn't have been able to use him defensively. And thus, if you've forgotten the rule, if you take the DH out and you insert the guy who replaces him in the field, you lose the DH privilege and have to bat your pitcher. And that's why Devereaux didn't hit for Klesko. Bobby wanted to keep him for defense. In the air to left field and deep. Devereaux goes back and can't make the play. It's off the scoreboard, and Thome winds up at second.
I'll tell you, this is why they like Thome. That's why he's so tough to pitch. 25 dingers, 22 of those against right-handed pitching. And Devereaux, who was a 6'10" high jumper in high school in Wyoming, back as far as he can go and unable to get it as it goes off the wall.
So Thome at second. He will stay in the game at third base in the top of the 8th. Alomar at the plate, and then Lofton as they get to the top of the order. Alomar grounded out, flied out, 0 for 2 in the game. And bluffs the bunt, takes up high, ball 1.
Yeah, Bobby Cox, you got to think that he liked the matchups. He's got a better defense. He's got McMichael, who had an outstanding year, couldn't hold the lead last night. Righties and lefties over the year, just over 200. He gives up a leadoff double.
And that's grounded to the right side. Lemke throws him out. The runner advances. In a 1-run game, that's a great play. In a game where you're down by 3, not so great. The Braves will take the out. Borbon and Clance in the bullpen. Lofton 0 for 3 tonight. The Braves can afford to play back at short and second. They'll be up at first and third only because of Lofton's speed. And he grounds that one into the glove of McGriff, and because he is playing even with a bag, he's able to hold Thome at third. 2 down.
Most of the time, speed is a tremendous asset offensively. But Lofton got burned because of his speed there. If Lofton couldn't run, McGriff would be back in the position the run scores. But because he can run, McGriff had to pinch in at first. And he looked Thome back at third, and Lofton's an easy out.
Now Vizquel. Strike. 0-1.
You know, it's funny, we talked about situational hitting, and Lofton, of course, having a great series, just jumps on the first pitch, well-intentioned, but a grounder to second or third. This ball game is 4-2.
And that's grounded down to Jones at third. And they get out of the inning without the Indians cutting into the lead. Atlanta by 3. Jim Thome stays in the game at third base, hitting in the 8th spot. And coming out of the bullpen for the Indians is Julian Taveras. 10 wins out of the pen in relief this season as the setup man. When you win 10 games as a setup man out of the bullpen, it tells you one thing. It means your club comes from behind for a lot of dramatic late inning victories. You're the beneficiary of that, and he hopes to be tonight as well. The Indians have done it time and time again this year.
And they've done it just as Atlanta's done it because of their great middle relief to get to the closers if you do get a lead.
Mark looks on as Taveras gets ready to face Lopez leading off in the 8th inning. Lopez, Lemke, and Belliard, the bottom 3 in the order. Inside ball 1. Boy, as noisy as this place can get, it can get on the other side of the spectrum, as it is right now, as quiet as I've ever heard it.
Almost eerie how quiet it is.
It's only because you're a superior analyst could you come up with something like that.
I'm not touching it.
You're not going to say it. I have to say it for you.
Here's the 1-1 pitch in there for a strike on the count. 1-2. Alan Embry in the Cleveland pen. Is gone. 1 out in the 8th inning, and that will bring up Mark Lemke. We'll have the player of the game at the conclusion of tonight's game. Chevrolet will present an MVP trophy, donate an Astrovan to the Special Olympics in the player's name at the end of the World Series. Mark Lemke 0 for 3 tonight. Fouls it off in the count. 0-1.
Ted Taveras pitching in 11 of the 13 games, and you don't find too many kids at 22 years of age that can change speeds, can pitch to both sides of the plate. Great splitter when he gets ahead. And you're going to win 100 games. This is the type of guy you want coming out of the bullpen.
And that's lined to left field for a base hit. Lemke's first hit of the night, 5th hit in the series. And Belliard comes up.
Here's a situation. You're up by 3. Bobby Cox may just sacrifice with Belliard to try to tack on a run. Good hitting by Lemke, lining one to left field. You don't see it too often, a 1-out sacrifice, but if Bobby Cox is inclined to do it, now would be a good time to try to tack on another run.
Yeah, something you wouldn't see in the National League because the pitcher would be behind Belliard unless you're going to take him out and pinch hit for him.
Belliard up there to bunt, misses for a strike. 0-1.
And of course, Bobby Cox has seen Belliard the limited times he's played. As we look at Jimmy Williams down at third, flashing the signs. Hit over 300 against left-handers, but about 190 against righties, so it's a high percentage play. Why not pad your lead?
Stepping off. 4 runs, 8 hits, and an error for the Braves. 1 run, 4 hits, and no errors for the Indians. I love watching Cox. I mean, he's so expressive. It's just terrific. And that's butted. Nice butt. And tag is made, or was it by Perry? What are they going to say?
Well, I think Frank Pulley said he was trying to avoid the tag. Home plate umpire John Hirschbeck said safe. And then Frank Pulley called him out saying he tried to avoid the tag.
Right.
Now, this is going to be at a great angle, and keep in mind as we take a look right here, Perry. Now there's your 40. I don't really think, Timmy, when he went to tag him, he was out of the baseline.
Well, you can. That I guess is Frank Pulley's opinion. But you can run out of the baseline, but you can't run out of the baseline in the umpire's judgment if you're trying to avoid a tag. But the second look of that, he wasn't that far out of the line, was he?
Very close call.
Yeah.
Now Grissom at the plate. So Belliard credited with the sacrifice as Marquise takes inside, ball 1.
Take another look. Right here, I mean, the good play is that Perry just flips it to Baerga, but he tries to tag him, and you could see him. I mean, he's maybe a foot, and Frank Pulley right there saying, listen, he's out of the line, you're out.
Little half swing chopper foul.
I think when both feet went on the inside of the line, the inside of that white line, with both feet over there, then that was conclusive enough for Pulley to call him out.
Does he get him on the back of the foot? You know, maybe he gets him on the heel.
But that's not the way the play was called. Frank Pulley called it that he was out of the line.
Yeah, I'm surprised Bobby didn't at least offer a mild protest. 1-2.
Yeah, you're right about his expressions. Grissom getting picked off with 2 outs in the 5th inning yesterday. We asked Bobby Cox what happened. He goes, he just went. Just took off. What can you do?
1 ball, 2 strikes. 2 out, 8th inning. 4-1 Atlanta. Two on Grissom.
This crowd realizing what an important run it is on second base because they've seen this team come from behind too many times this year.
And for that reason, Timmy, you have a guy that's hitting 12 straight games. You got Mike Devereaux on deck who does not hit right-handers. I mean, I don't know what Tavares is going to do, but you got to be very careful here. Make your pitch or don't make it at all.
And he waves at it and grounds it toward third. Thome charges but has no play. Grissom has too much speed, so he holds on to it. And down to third goes Lemke. Runners at first and third now, and Mike Devereaux comes up. Grissom has 3 hits tonight.
Well, in my opinion, this is a great play. I mean, it's a great pitch, good slider, not hit particularly hard. Thome knows if he tries to make the play and throws it away, they may add an insurance run. You can see him taking a little bit of an angle right there. He fakes the throw and hopes that Lemke down at second comes around and maybe thinks about scoring. And it's the same thing. It's almost like you pitched around Grissom.
Devereaux now, 2 on, 2 out, outside, ball 1. When postseason starts, as you look at Lemke at third and Grissom at first, Devereaux was a role player, but he played the role so well, he was the National League Championship Series MVP. Two and oh. Jim Warfield giving Jeff Newman a little rub down.
And Jeff, the third base coach. It's not a good sign, Jim.
No.
I think Mike Hargrove out to talk to Tavares and to tell Alomar, or I guess that's Mark Wiley, out to talk to Tavares and possibly tell Alomar what to do in case Grissom runs to second. But it looks like usually if a pitching coach goes right to the pitcher, he's talking about something about his mechanics, which I'll tell you, I've never been a big fan of that. I think once the game begins, you work on from the neck up. You don't work on the arm. You don't work on the mechanics of a pitcher or a hitter in a hitting coach's capacity. I think you do that in the games, you know, like before the game and spring training, things like that.
2 balls, no strikes. Jones on deck. Runners at first and third. 2 down. 2-1.
So I guess it's safe to say that you never went out to the mound and told Carlton that his mechanics were awry.
No. I never believed that much about the mechanics. I think you work on the mental part of the game once the game begins, and you don't, maybe a key here and there, but not too many things to get guys to think too much.
Runner goes, pitch outside, bluff throw to second, so an uncontested advance.
That was a bad bluff too.
That was. Could have thrown his shoulder out of that bluff.
Yeah. That bluff was so bad, if that were a card game, I'd have called.
Had a raised. And the pitch is inside for ball 4. So Devereaux walks, and now Chipper Jones comes up with the bases loaded and 2 out. And that's going to do it for Taveras as Hargrove goes to the mound. And they will go to the bullpen with the bases loaded, 2 out. And the Indians trying to stay in the game, down by 3. Taveras out and Embry in. And Assenmacher can only hold his head, pretty much summing up the plight of the Indians, at least at the moment.
Yeah, Alan Embry, we talked about Assenmacher having a great curveball. Embry throws 96, 97 miles per hour, and Mike Hargrove put it before the game. He said when he throws the ball over, you better get the bat going. That's his biggest problem, just throwing strikes, and he has not had problems here in the World Series.
3rd time in 2 nights the Indians have brought a lefty in to face Jones to turn the switch hitter around, and the first pitch is in there. Bases loaded with Lemke, Grissom, and Devereaux.
Talk about a left arm that has been reborn. Alan Embry.
Yeah, medial collateral ligament transplant in 1993, and a lot of people didn't know if he would ever pitch with the effectiveness or the velocity that he had. But he is something. Went down to the Arizona Fall League last year, worked on his slider. He's got starter stuff. I mean, you just don't find too many left-handers or right-handers with this kind of velocity and movement.
One-two to Jones. Away, 2-2. When the Indians bat in the bottom of the 8th, 3, 4, and 5, it's Baerga, Bell, and Murray. Embry trying to keep Cleveland in the game. 4-1 in the 8th. Still 2-2. Whatever it takes.
Rally bubble.
Well, they need an out bubble here.
And that's in the air to right center field. And Embry will keep him in the game as Ramirez makes the catch. Atlanta leaves the bases loaded. 4-1 in the middle of the 8th. Jacobs Field coming alive again as the crowd tries to help the Indians rally here in the 8th inning. Stars and Stripes, the Goodyear Blimp, still hovering in the late October northern Ohio skies. It's a beautiful night. Temperature still in the 50s as Carlos Baerga leads off in the bottom of the 8th inning. 4-1 Atlanta. Strike on 1. funny how in this postseason the old adages apply that good pitching stops good hitting. And in particular for the Indians, walks will kill you. The other night, Hershiser, and that was the difference in that game, 3-2. Orel will pitch tomorrow, and the walk tonight. In the 7th inning, the walk to Grissom with 1 out was the launching pad. That's grounded down to McGriff, and Freddie will do it himself. 1 away.
I was talking to Charlie Manuel, the hitting instructor with the Indians, and the amazing thing is that he released Greg McMichael when he played for him at Colorado Springs. So here's a guy that was almost out of baseball, had to go back to A-ball, and last year was the closer with 21 saves. And here he is trying to get him to their closer, maybe tonight, Mark Wohlers.
And Wohlers, who had a busy night last night, 2 2/3, his longest stint of the season by far, throwing in the pen.
You know, I asked Charlie, I said, well, you know what, tell me about McNichol now and then. He said a changeup that made him a major league pitcher.
1-0.
Well, Al talked about the good pitching stopping good hitting. You notice how the pitchers have stopped the Indians hitting so far. With the exception of Wohlers and John Smoltz, most of them have done it with good control and off-speed stuff. You're not going to overpower Cleveland's hitters. They're too strong. A lot of American League teams found that out this year. And Bobby Cox really knows the art of pitching, along with his pitching coach, Leo Mazzoni. And what gets hitters out? It's not always velocity. Certainly it would be in Mark Wohlers' case. You look at the others, not so.
Little squibber.
Changeup.
Yep, there it is.
Changeup.
McMichael throws him out, 2 down.
And you go back to Steve Avery's performance when he did not locate his fastball. The balls were hit hard, but as the game progressed, used his curveball, used the location, and got a bunch of outs and pitched a marvelous game.
Changeup. Back to McMichael. All these Indian hitters geared for the fastball, and with the exception of John Smoltz, I mean, it would stand to reason that the Indians would hit Smoltz better than any of the other Atlanta pitchers, because he's the guy who has to go power against power.
And they did last night.
Right.
Strike, 0-1. Indians during the World Series, right up to the moment, hitting a collective 183. And Murray hits that on the ground to short. Belliard throws him out, and an easy inning for McMichael. To the 9th in Cleveland. Atlanta 4, Cleveland 1. We're at Jacobs Field in Cleveland. Al Michaels with Jim Palmer and Tim McCarver. Our group headed up by producer Kurt Gowdy Jr. and director Bill Webb, and as always, Steve Hurt providing the script as we go to the 9th inning. 4-1. The Braves on top, and Freddie McGriff takes a strike, 0-1.
Tell you, Steve has been writing some pretty good scripts for these 4 games.
As always.
In the air to left field, and Bell with a long way to go and can't get there, and it's chased down by Tomei as McGriff winds up at second with a double. So a looping double to left field right down the line for a guy who pulls the ball. So Bell with a long way to run, and for Freddie McGriff, his first hit of the night.
Albert Bell playing McGriff so deeply that he had too far to run to make the play.
And here is Justice.
And our MCI proof positive replay of the evening. David Justice driving in 2 runs on a hanging breaking ball for Paul Assenmacher his last time up. And remember, David stranded 4 runners on base his first 2 times up tonight, but not then. He said, "Thou shalt not pass," and roped one up the middle.
Turned a 2-1 game into a 4-1 game. 1-0.
I love that term, roped. You know, it's one of those terms when I first broke in, I'd say Tony Oliva, boy, does he hit ropes.
Hemp. Another name the players use for line drives.
Popped up. Playable. Tomei puts it away. One away. So McGriff at second, one down, and Mike Mordecai emerges from the dugout. It's a hit for Klesko as the designated hitter.
You can see those postseason numbers, single and double against Colorado, very instrumental in helping the Braves beat the Rockies. He was still lamenting last night of not being able to sacrifice the runner over the second time. So that's the way you win ball games, moving runners along, playing good fundamental baseball.
Here's a guy like Mike Mordecai who tried to bunt last night with 2 strikes on him twice, and he's the pinch hitter for a left-handed batter that hit a home run tonight. Now figure that out.
It's strange. Want to know? That's why I had to take a second look at the on-deck circle with Klesko due up to see Mordecai come up in this situation. But it's lefty against lefty. And he wants the right-handed batter in there instead. 1-1. Dennis Martinez, he hopes that he'll see more action. If he does, it will be Saturday. He would pitch a 6th game at Atlanta. Out of play. Tomorrow night, again, the game tomorrow night is on ABC, right where you are, 8 o'clock Eastern. Our pregame show begins. First pitch around 8:20. Greg Maddux for Atlanta and Oral Hershiser, the same matchup we had in game 1 last Saturday night. Crowd and the bench pensive. Still 1-2.
Alan Embry, the pitcher for the Indians, finally at a place where he doesn't have to worry about tickets. I know this is Cleveland. You'd think he lives there. Well, he's from the Seattle area, and when Cleveland played Seattle out there, ticket request. His wife is from the Atlanta area, so when they were in Atlanta, ticket request down there. So he's finally playing in his home ballpark and not as many ticket requests.
For those of you sitting at home, players do pay for their tickets in the World Series. Do they ever?
Foul back.
A lot of the people you've been giving tickets to think they don't have to pay for them.
No, in the old days, I mean, you know, I think one of the problems with Baltimore is we kept getting in there, and then, you know, the first year we got 8 boxes and 20 upper deck, and the next year was 6 boxes. The third year was 4 boxes, and the ticket prices kept going up. You wanted to sweep because it would cost you less money because they thought you were getting them for nothing.
And knowing you, I'm surprised you didn't ask for a trade.
Oh, yes. But of course, you're right.
Here's the 1-2 pitch, and that's lined to left field and right into the glove of Bell for the out. 2 down.
What do you mean knowing me?
Yeah.
It's a sneaky way for you to get your friends to whip out.
That's true.
2 out in the 9th inning.
What do you mean we have to pay for these tickets?
The tickets very much at a premium in this ballpark. One of the ironies of the World Series coming to Cleveland is that they could have had twice as many people in the old park. Old cavernous Cleveland Stadium as Mark Wiley visits the mound with first base open here. Lopez and Lemke on deck. But I think the good folks in Cleveland will much prefer Jacobs Field in the long run to old Cleveland Stadium. Tonight's World Series game is being brought to you by United Artists Goldeneye. Bond is back this fall. Texaco Clean System 3 gasolines. And Network MCI, how to get modern communications technology working for your business. When the Indians bat in the bottom of the 9th inning, Ramirez, Perry, and Tomei. 6, 7, and 8. Embry's first pitch inside, ball 1 to Lopez. Charlie O'Brien figures to catch tomorrow night since he normally hooks up with Maddox. Strike, 1-1. Late swing, 1-2. Ted Turner, Jane Fonda, just relaxing. Ted's owned the Braves since the mid-70s. They're still seeking that first championship since the franchise went to the South in the mid-60s. And that's hit down the left field line, and that will drive in another run as Bell will track it down in the corner. McGriff comes in to score. Lopez has a double, and that makes the score 5-1. A 4-run lead in the 9th inning with Lopez doubling for the second time in the game, and Lemke coming up.
I'll tell you, this is pretty impressive, Timmy. I'll tell you what, pretty good pitch inside part of the plate, probably 95 miles per hour. And you see Javi Lopez, how quick his bat is. Fights it off, strong enough not only to fight it off, but take it off the left field wall for an RBI double.
That's a 95-mile-an-hour inside fastball. He rolled down there, and everybody's thinking, well, you've got Lemke up, first base open. But when you're trailing by 3 runs and you're Mike Hargrove, you don't want to put any more runners on base. Now you get the big pop, and the game's really out of hand. Mark Lemke, a .290 hitter against left-handed pitching the last 3 years.
Was his 9th in postseason, and that's as many as Freddie McGriff has. So Javi quietly doing the job. 1-2 pitch, and that's hit in the air to left field. Bell moves over toward the gap and pulls it in. In the 9th, Atlanta gets a run to extend its lead to 5-1, and we'll return to Cleveland after this from our ABC stations. Braves on top 5-1 going to the bottom of the 9th inning, and with a 4-run lead despite having pitched last night an extended 2 2/3 innings. The Atlanta Braves can smell it. And when you can smell it, you go to your bullpen and you bring in Mark Wohlers. And so here he is. And Bobby Cox was talking before the game with us about, and Jim, you better than anybody can tell the folks, are you stiffer the next night or the night after for a relief pitcher after you have the type of outing he had last?
Yeah, I think Bobby was generalizing, but he said normally people tell him it's the second day. Only 41 pitches, but with the intentional work of about 34 pitches last night in those 2 2/3 innings. And again, if you're Bobby Cox and you're Leo Mazzoni, the pitching coach, you have to rely that this young man at 25 is going to tell you the truth. He can pitch, and he says yes. With his kind of stuff, get him out there.
Manny Ramirez to lead off, bottom of the 9th inning.
And if you're the Indians, you need base runners. You'll take them any way you can get them.
plus you may be thinking, well, why is Wohlers in a game like this 4 runs down? Well, when it was 3 runs down, it was a safe situation. He got ready, and then Lopez got the double, so while he's ready, bring him in. That's Bobby Cox's thinking, and you certainly can't fault it.
Fouled away in the count, 1-1. You're down by 4. You need base runners. I mean, do you not take a strike?
Absolutely, but that has vanished in the game. You know, the players are bigger, stronger today. They're better players potentially, but that doesn't translate into the game being played as well, and that's unfortunate.
Strike 2. But if you're the manager, just give them the take sign.
Well, guys are less apt to take the take sign nowadays. It's the tail wagging the dog on a lot of clubs.
Then you fine him.
I mean, Mike Hargrove, I mean, he had one of the best and most disciplined strike zone of any guy I ever pitched to. He would have been taking on his own. But then again, he knew how to play the game. It makes a difference. If you spent 4 or 5 years coming through the minor leagues, you just know in that situation, I don't even worry about me getting a hit. I worry about getting on base somewhere, and sometimes that means taking a pitch.
And it was interesting that the 1-0 pitch was a high fastball out of the strike zone.
And it would have been 2-0.
Yep.
Two is hit in the air to deep left center field, and that one is in the bleachers. No more magical endings in baseball anywhere more than Jacobs Field this year. Seemingly night after night this summer. And Ramirez makes it 5-2.
That's about the time it took for him to get down to first base.
So a 3-run lead, and Sorrento batting for Perry takes a strike. Tomei on deck. That home run by Ramirez was his 3rd of postseason and has accounted for every RBI. He has 3 solo home runs.
Yeah, the second game against Seattle, he had 2 of those home runs and 4 of those RBIs.
Then after that, he went 4 for his last 40 till that home run. So he's been struggling.
1-1 to Sorrento. Missing away, 2-1.
Well, you know, maybe that home run will tell Mark Wohlers, I just can't stay in the middle of the plate. Normally, when he throws that speed with great movement, he just can throw it right by you.
Half swing, fooled him. 2-2.
Fooled him not with the pitch, but the location of the pitch. Low and away out of the strike zone. Ball went too far. You don't have too long to decide, I'll tell you.
Oh, no. Line drive, base hit into left center, and maybe more as it rolls to the wall. And Sorrento is in at second with a double.
What a huge run driven in by Javier Lopez. top of the 9th inning. Otherwise, the Indians have the tying run-up in the person of Jim Thome. Belliard jumping for that just out of his reach, and Sorrento with a double. Bobby wanted to jump with Rafi.
The Indians this season won 9 games in which the team trailed going into the 9th inning, and Pedro Borbon comes in from the bullpen. So the Indians with a lot of late inning magic this year, and now Wohlers, after that extended outing last night, is asked to pitch an inning tonight and can't face a third batter as he gives up a home run and a double, and out he comes. And now Pedro Borbon, the son of the former Reds pitcher in the 70s who pitched in a World Series, comes in here.
Jim, I've got to believe Bobby Cox is saying if Manny Ramirez can get around on a Wohlers fastball and Sorrento can hit a ball that hard, then I've got to believe that Wohlers just doesn't have it, and that's it.
Oh, and I think he's got a lot of guts to make this move.
I do too.
And again, if you're a manager, or even if you're a pitcher, the hitters tell you something's not working, and that was rather obvious tonight. Again, you know, the velocity looked like it was up there, Timmy, but no movement. Obviously a lot of line drives, and if you're Bobby Cox, I tell you what, because you bring in Borbon, you still have Clance to back him up.
Such a strange game. You go to Wohlers to close him out. He can't do it. So now you have to go backwards in a way.
Right.
You bring in Borbon. Borbon has pitched one time in postseason, October 6th. So he hasn't pitched in 2 weeks, and he faced 4 batters that night at Atlanta against Colorado. And Thome will come up to hit, lefty against lefty.
And this is no sure thing, lefty versus lefty. Last year, Thome, you look at his numbers here in the World Series, but this year he hit .275 against left-handed pitching. Last year it was about .170.
And Alejandro Pena, the loser last night, and Clance in the bullpen.
Yes, so that would mean that Borbon is there to pitch to one hitter, and that's Thome.
Borbon pitching for the first time in 19 days. Alomar on deck.
Borbon, fastball, slider. Everything's hard.
Throwing a strike's the most difficult for Pedro right now, however.
2-0.
Got a take here. 2 balls, no strikes. The Indians are trailing by 3. 1 runner on. If I'm Mike Hargrove, now I flash the take sign.
Yeah, and Thome, I mean, you know, Thome hit a lot of home runs, but he also walked 97 times, so he knows the strike zone. You don't care. A 2-run home run doesn't mean anything here. Puts you still 1 run down.
Right.
2-1. Ooh, 2-2.
Well, he will drop down on you. Had a chance to talk to Pedro yesterday. We'll go back to the Dominican to become a starting pitcher. Said, I want to work on a changeup, but he said, up here in the big leagues, he said, I got to get left-handed hitters out, and my best pitch is a good fastball and a hard slider. He will drop down and give you that look. Different point of release.
Cold strike 3. Pedro Borbon, for the first time in almost 3 weeks, goes to a mound, falls behind 2-0, and on a 2-2 pitch, that's a beauty.
Sure was. Good mechanics. Shoulder stays tucked, and he lets it go. It's been a very liberal strike zone all night. It's been a big strike zone, maybe an inch or so off the plate.
And the way he worked Tomé earned him another batter because they stay with him to face Alomar, who fouls it back. You would have said, as we did, that it was a case of facing just a left-handed hitter.
But because he looked so good and threw strikes and Lofton is on deck, the left-hander, Bobby Cox is allowing Bourbon to face Alomar.
And remember something you talked about earlier, and Bobby Cox told us early before, Al, was that Pena with a little bit of upper back problem. So Bobby again seeing for his own eyes. This kid has thrown the ball 90 miles per hour and throwing strikes. Take a shot here.
He had very few save opportunities during the regular season and wound up with just 2. That's grounded foul. And here he is trying to save the 4th game of the World Series. 0-2. Just inside. How strange has this baseball season been? Remember the replacement players? Pedro's father, Pedro Sr., in his late 40s, was a replacement player. And here's Junior trying to save Game 4 of the World Series. And he strikes him out. Alomar is gone. 2 down in the 9th inning, and Lofton comes up.
This is the replacement player that Bobby Cox wanted. That's Pedro Bourbon replacing his best reliever. In a situation where he comes in to strike out Tomé and now Sandy Alomar, and restored order for the time being.
Well, you really are seeing why everybody considers this Braves staff the best staff in baseball. It's not just the starters. And this is what baseball is all about, picking up the guy in front of you that may falter.
Tomé still barking about called strike 3. Lofton at the plate. Outside, ball 1. If Kenny gets on, that brings the tying run to the plate. Omar Vizquel. 5-2 Braves. 2 out of the 9th. And that's line to right field, and backing up and making the catch is Justice. Lofton smoking it to right field. Wohler's the first guy out of the dugout. A star is born right there. Pedro Bourbon Jr. The pitching coach, Leo Mazzoni, heaves a sigh of relief, and the kid comes out of the pen pitching for the first time in 19 days with the crowd in a frenzy, and he stills them in Cleveland.
I think Jim's point about Bobby Cox having the courage to bring Bourbon in that situation, fairly salient thinking right now.
I mean, Bobby, you know, again, you've been around the game this long, Timmy. You see with your own eyes. I still remember walking down, talking about Earl Weaver, saying the guy threw 135 pitches. He told me, he said, listen, I can see whether the guy's got good stuff or not. That's what Cox did tonight.
Tonight's Chevrolet player of the game with the final score, Braves 5, Indians 2. Dave Justice, that big 2-run single in the 7th inning, turned a 2-1 game into a 4-1 game. And in conjunction with the program, Chevy contributes a total of $50,000 to the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And let's get a word from Leslie Visser. Leslie.
Al, with Dave Justice, Mark Lemke said you were due to break out tonight. How satisfying was that 2-run single?
It was great because until that opportunity runners, so it felt really good because we needed that, because we know what kind of team Cleveland has, and the more runs we can get ahead of them, the better for us.
What was the difference in this game? Do you feel Steve Avery justified Bobby Cox deciding to go with him?
Steve did an awesome job. You know, he was under a lot of pressure. A lot of people were kind of second guessing Bobby, and Steve came out and did what we didn't do a lot of times, and I'm really happy for him. So that whole, you know, I want. He did, and you know, came up big for it.
Congratulations.
Okay, Leslie, we apologize for the technical difficulties, but I think we got the essence of what Dave was talking about, and clearly the essence of what happens tonight is the Braves are one win away from the world title. Tomorrow night, Game 5, Maddox against Hershiser, the game right here on ABC. Until tomorrow, from Jacobs Field, Al Michaels, Jim Palmer, Tim McCarver saying good